Welcome to What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Yellow Rose Canyon, your premier event space and campground nestled in the piney woods of East Texas. With cabins and RV sites available, Yellow Rose Canyon is perfect for your next event, no matter the size. A wedding, reunion, festival, you name it. Check it all out at yellowrosecanyon.com. All right. Hey, welcome to another episode of What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, as always, Oliver Peck. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. Today's episode, or this week's episode, or the current episode of What in the Duck podcast, I'm very happy to have longtime friend Justin Wilson, also affectionately known as J-Dub. He's a musician, he's an artist, he's a content creator, he's a video editor, he's a movie editor, commercial editor. He's anything audio visual. He's made movies of his own, created his own content. He's edited movies for, big movies, made documentaries, edited documentaries. He's been in bands, and he's made sound music for the movies and videos he's made. He's done a lot of things, and we probably not going to be able to talk about everything he does because we just get lost in how much shit this guy's done over the years. But he was a very prominent Dallas musician in a band called Red Animal War, which was pretty hot at the time. Groundbreaking, game-changing band, as people say. And also the band Saboteur. We'll talk about a lot of things, but he was also a roommate of mine at one time. We had a lot of good times in our wild, youthful days. So stick around for the Justin Wilson interview. It's going to be great. But as always, started off, I got a couple questions from the Gmail. If anybody wants to ask me any questions for me to answer on the podcast, you just send them on over to whatintheduckpodcast@gmail.com. Send me some questions. And if I get your question and answer it on the podcast, we will send you free shit. Send you some What in the Duck podcast merchandise. We love to give free shit to our listeners. So engage, be a part. We also have a contest going on right now. So be a subscriber and you get entered in the contest, win more free shit. So just go to YouTube channel and subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, like the video, share the video, do all the things. No matter what platform you're listening to the show on, please clickety click, do all the clicks and like, comment, share, and tell your friends. What in the Duck podcast? We're here for you. First question from Maddie says, "Hey, Oliver, I was wondering what your strategy would be if you were a contestant on the show, Ink Master. How would you play it if you didn't have any knowledge, and how do you think you'd fare? Loving the show. Thanks, Mean Matt." Maybe I've talked about this before or answered this question in a different way before, or in a different, almost close to this question. But knowing what I know now from behind the scenes of being on the show, you've heard me talk to Cruzman and stuff about what it's like being on the show. And I think when I talked to Cruzman, I was like, dude, I would not be able to do it. And I really think that I would not make it. I'm only saying these things because of my experience. If I was a young, unexperienced in television tattooer, I could maybe look at it from a different lens, but my view has already been so tainted. It's hard to, sometimes you can see things from another point of view but man, once you've seen too much, it's hard to unsee what you've seen. It's hard to unknow what you know. And it is a whipping being a contestant on a reality show. And I always say this too, not to bum anybody out, but Ink Master is a reality game show. That is what it is. People like to think that it's something at its core. It's just a game show that lasts 9 weeks, not like 45 minutes of being on Jeopardy. there's so many ins and outs of being on that show. And I think that there's very few tattooers that really can fit into the puzzle piece of being able to do a lot of different styles and be really, really good at all of them. That's just not really a common thing in any kind of genre. Most people, there was Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson was good at football and baseball and basketball. But he was in professional football, professional basketball, and professional baseball. And there's like 2 other people in the world that have ever done that. Most people that play football are not good at basketball and vice versa, or good at golf and not good at whatever else they do. But to be able to do, the way you get good at something is concentrating on it. And when you concentrate on one style or one genre of something, you get really good at that. It's like saying every guitar player is a great piano player. It just doesn't work that way. So I don't have the mindset to try to go in and try to do every single thing. And I also don't have the mindset to be trapped in that house and go out into the field and do silly challenges with stacking bricks and stuff. I would. And I will say this, there's a lot of people, a lot of contestants over the years that entered that show not knowing what they were getting into. And you can tell, everything is hidden with the mask of editing magic. But there's some people that go on that show, and by the second week, they're like, dude, what the fuck am I doing here? And some people go home early because they just did the worst tattoo that week. But some people go home earlier in the show because they realize that this isn't for them. They're not going to try that hard. And they just kind of get discouraged. And once somebody gives up and not really in it to win it, then they're just going to phase themselves out. Did I answer the question? Well, the main question is, I think the last sentence is here. How do I think I would fare? I would do horribly. That's the answer to the question, Matt. All right. Next question is from Wyatt. Wyatt gives me some information here. He says, hello, Oliver. My name is Wyatt. I'm 29 years old from Glen Rock, Pennsylvania. My question is, should an apprenticeship be paid for or earned? I was offered an apprenticeship by the busiest and most respected shop in our local area, but my mentor wants me to pay him $6,000 for 2 years of teaching. I turned it down because I feel like apprenticeship should be earned through discipline, hard work, and paying my dues for the shop. I paint American traditional tattoo flash and would love to pursue tattooing, but I am lost on how to approach it. Do you think I should have bit the bullet and paid the $6,000? I'm worried now I won't get another opportunity. Thanks for everything you do and taking the time to read this. I hope you have a great day. Well, Wyatt, I hope you have a great day too. I'm going to say that $6,000 in today's modern culture of tattooing, to learn a tattoo is very inexpensive. What other 2-year course are you going to get for $6,000? What other training are you going to get that's going to provide you with a career like tattooing? I think $6,000 is a pretty fair deal. I think that is pretty cheap. I think the standard that was kind of just considered the standard starting point for the last 20 years that was thrown around was $10,000. And that was 20 years ago or 10 years ago. I would expect it to be a lot more. If I was going to spend 2 years teaching somebody, I would ask for more than that. And as far as being earned, I think it is earned. Just because you pay to go to college doesn't mean you don't have to earn the degree. You have to earn the grades. You pay to go to school, but then you still have to dedicate yourself to learn it, and you do have to work hard to get it. So I think that if somebody was willing to offer you an apprenticeship just for no money, but just in trade for work, I know that is pretty common as well, but that is also a lot of work, and a lot of people get, really taken hard down that road. But I would say if you could get it for $6,000, that's a good deal. And I don't know if you will get another opportunity like that. And I don't know if this is too late for that opportunity to be taken. But if you're not willing to invest in learning what you want to learn for the future, then you can't expect someone else to invest in you. And I think that maybe this guy has had other people show up and want to learn to tattoo, and they said, yeah, sure. And then he's like, okay. And then they just kind of like phase out, or they don't work hard enough, or they expect it to come too easy. Now, maybe just paying that money up front is something that shows dedication and shows that you really invested in it. And then it shows you're not going to give up because you put so much money down. You got skin in the game, and you got a reason to keep going back. So that's my 2 cents on that one. It is these days, it is very hard to find an apprenticeship in general. There's a lot of tattoo shops, and everybody's not as busy as they used to be. And there was a time when everybody was trying to teach somebody, and so they could get more people working at a shop because it was so busy and needed more tattooers. And that is not really the case right now. So I wish you the best, Wyatt. Take it easy, man. And as long as you're doing art and you're staying happy doing art, then that's really what matters. Next question from Michael. Michael says, hey, Oliver, big fan. Since my wife got me an Ink Master, now every time we watch, we think about getting more tattoos. Well, I like that. My question is it too late to get into tattooing? How do you start? I'm pushing 40. Never had an artistic type job, but always loved doodling. It seems like it would be a hell of a fun job, but I don't know where I would start. I hear about apprenticing, but should I do anything before that? Thanks. So that last question and this question kind of goes together. So Michael, if you heard the question before, about apprenticeship is like the number one way to get into the business and get a solid, steady grasp on what it is to be a tattooer. And if you can find somebody who's good and at a good shop, you can learn and get to work pretty quickly. Without getting a professional tattooer that's good to formally teach you from scratch, it's very hard, and it takes much longer to make it down the road. Tattooing can be a fun job, but the first couple of years of tattooing is you don't really get into the fun part. I mean, it can all be fun. Learning can be fun, but it is. You have to dedicate pretty much everything to learning to tattoo. And it does take quite some time to get good enough to where you can feasibly charge money for it and in a shop environment, and have the owner of the shop allow you to do tattoos on their public clients for cash. So being older, being married, possibly having children, and possibly needing to support yourself and family at the same time as learning to tattoo is very, very difficult. If you can only dedicate a small amount of time to learning to tattoo, and you still have to keep a regular job and support yourself, it's going to take a lot longer. And most people don't really get to a point of self-sufficiency in tattooing till 5+ years. And that's with dedicating 100% of the time. Young tattooers that are learning to tattoo, it is very common that they get recommended, like, you're going to have to quit doing everything else. You're not going to have a social life. You're not going to have a relationship. You're not going to have this. It's even hard to have a dog. And I've had young tattooers learning in spaces close to me, and my advice is, I've given people harsh advice about, hey, not having a boyfriend and not having a girlfriend at the time. And, they thought I was crazy and they thought this and that. And it put such a strain on your life and relationships that most people during the first few years of learning to tattoo and getting good at tattooing, whatever relationship they're in, it crumbles and falls apart because you cannot dedicate your life 100% to multiple things. And that's just the facts. So that's something to think about as far as doing art and maybe doing tattoos as a hobby. A lot of people drastically frowned upon that. But I oddly kind of tell people to do it. Because tattooing, getting really good tattoos is definitely very cool in a part of the tattoo industry, but I have tattoos that I did on myself when I was a kid. I have tattoos that young friends of mine did on me before we were professionally tattooing. And just art is subjective, and so a lot of people, very common thing of the last 20 years is people bring in their children's drawings and have the tattoo put on to look just like a Crayola scribble that their kid did. And the artist, when this first came to be a thing, it was like, man, we should redraw this and put a clean line on it, or we should make it look straight, or we should make both eyes the same size, or we should make it look like what it is supposed to be instead of, mindless dribble from a 3-year-old. But they wanted the mindless dribble from a 3-year-old because they wanted that special thing. And it has become something that's pretty cool. And just because you're 40 years old doesn't mean you can't come up with some cool thing that you could scribble on somebody, and it doesn't have to be a great tattoo. I'm telling you to do things that is against, what professional tattooing has been for many years. But it'd be wrong for you. It's wrong for someone not being good at tattooing to sit in a tattoo shop and charge an unsuspecting customer money to give something they expect they're going to get a good tattoo. But if you were to tattoo your brother or your best friend or your wife or have your kid tattoo you, and everybody knows what they're getting, that could be the coolest tattoo that you have. It's pretty common for a lot of tattooers when they have young children to let their young children tattoo on them their first tattoo, and it's a cherished memory. And look at this little skull my 4-year-old scribbled on me 20 years ago. Now the kid's older, so I don't know if I'm answering your question either, but don't be afraid to tattoo yourself for sure, because you might just get the tattoo you deserve, the perfect tattoo. You might at least figure out if this is even a road you want to go down or not. Well, thank you for your question. And I encourage everybody to tattoo themselves, especially people that are underage. That I tell all my friends' children, you should just tattoo yourself. Just get a needle and get a pen and poke yourself. It'll be there forever. And it might be the coolest tattoo you ever got. So that'll do it. Next up, episode with Justin Wilson. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and share. Email me all your questions to whatintheduckpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll send you some free shit. All right. What in the Duck Podcast is proud to be sponsored by Dream Machines of Texas. All of your used motorcycle wants and needs all in one place at dreammachinesoftexas.com. They have multiple locations, large inventory, and get new bikes in every week. Knowledgeable staff with great service, financing, and extended warranty options available. They also have a complete service garage, so every bike is gone through and brought up to speed before you hit the road. I've bought more than a few bikes from Dream Machines over the years, and I could not be more satisfied. I have also had friends from all over the country buy bikes because they couldn't find a better deal anywhere. You can buy a bike and have it shipped to you anywhere in the U.S. Why buy a brand new bike with that brand new high price when you can get a like new bike with that dream deal you've been looking for? Go to dreammachinesoftexas.com and get a bike and get your ass on the road. Welcome to another episode of What in the Duck podcast. I'm your host, Oliver Peck, and today I am down south in Austin with my good buddy J-Dub, also known as Justin Wilson.
That's me.
And we've been friends for many years. We were just talking about it. Decades, in fact. Justin is a man of many talents. We've also shared a domicile.
For multiple years.
We were roomies.
Yes.
Back in the, it was wild. Those are wild times.
The late aughts.
The fancy free, young and wild and completely retarded times of our lives.
I wouldn't say that. I would say it was formative years.
We formated something.
Pranks.
Oh, man. I don't think we could talk about pranks.
Why not? I thought you already talked about the pranks.
We didn't talk about pranks.
You told me you talked about the pranks.
I never pranked anyone. Justin Wilson was known for pranking a lot of our friends.
Oh, yeah, that was me. Wake up. It's 4 a.m. Get your video camera.
We gotta go.
We need documentation of this crime we're about to commit.
There was very small crimes committed. Very small crimes. Where is the video documentation of these small crimes?
They're actually under my.
You still have them?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, anyway, Justin Wilson, filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
Of the last, how many years have you technically been a filmmaker? What's the first film you made?
Made so many little things as a youngster. The first thing that anyone would probably know would be maybe Filmage.
Yeah, but that was a big film. That was a major happening in the punk rock scene.
I think before that, it was just like music videos and short little things.
And you worked for a company that made commercials, which are technically film products.
Yes.
So filmmaker for many years. What year? Let's talk about Filmage real fast since you brought it up. What year did that documentary come out?
I think officially it was 2013.
And that's a great documentary. For those of you who don't know, there was a band called The Descendants. They were a band in the late 80s. To the early 90s, maybe all probably started 89 or 88 or something like that. So late 80s was The Descendants. Then they changed members and kind of kept on that similar trajectory with the band name All. And then it just became a thing. And they did a resurgence and were Descendants again. And
early 90s.
Big in the pop punk scene.
Still.
And Justin Wilson and some other people that we may or may not name, but made a documentary about the Descendants. It was called Filmage. It was a great documentary, a lot of great animation in it, a lot of great footage, a lot of great interviews from dozens and dozens of people in the punk rock industry. And I feel like that movie was well received.
Oh yeah. We went all over the world with it.
Yeah. It was shown at, film festivals and private and public showings at theaters all over the country, and a lot of buzz around that.
Yeah, I think we were in a few film festivals, but the main thing that we did was our own tour of it. So we would go on tour with the movie ourselves and like sell T-shirts like you would a band.
Yeah.
So it was just like when I was in a band, except I didn't have to play. I just got to sit and watch the movie, and then after sell the T-shirts and sell the posters and talk to people, and it's the same mentality. Door split with the theater instead of the venue.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you're a fan of The Descendants and you've never seen the movie, you definitely got to see Filmage.
Oh, yeah.
And that kind of put you in you made some music videos before that, but that kind of put you in the market for a lot of music business video stuff.
Yeah. I think right after Filmage, it's when we did the Fat Records documentary with my buddy Sean and Joel. And that
also a good documentary.
Yeah, it happened pretty much on the heels of Filmage.
There's a lot of people in my generation, my era of my age group of being punk rock and skater in the 80s. Descendants was a very formative band, and Descendants was a lot of people's favorite band.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just they were able to keep the fan base a little bit when they changed the name to All, but then a few albums in All, the music kind of changed and people kind of grew up. And I don't feel that All really got the traction of the youth that Descendants had captured a decade earlier.
Yeah, they were experimenting.
But when Descendants resurged, a lot of people jumped back on.
Yeah.
A lot of older people really came back to see all those reunion shows. And then it turned out that it was more than just a reunion show. It turned out they were a full-on band again. New albums and full tours. And come on in.
Here comes my wife.
I'm like, uh-oh.
You're supposed to climb in the window out back.
Yeah.
We've been waiting for the spinach to get here, and now it has arrived.
And I've got spinach enough for everyone.
Now it has arrived.
What were you saying?
I was saying
Something about Filmage.
Oh, just how when Descendants came back to being a full-fledged band again.
With Everything Sucks in '96.
Dude, but it came back to like full-on tours and full-on resurgence, and a lot of people taking their kids to see their favorite band that from when they were kids, and it was kind of like just the right time for that band to resurge, because the older generation had teenage kids by this time, because it was, I mean, it's probably at least 25 plus years later, right? From 96, from
yeah, they started in '79.
Yeah, so
yeah. But yeah, I think it was a perfect time. I went and saw them in Deep Elm Live that tour with the guys in MXPX.
we were there.
You were?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah, those guys, the MXPX guys came down and they went with us to the show. I remember they came to Dallas and like we went to the show together. And I thought that was so fun. Like the guys in MXPX were just, there with us at the same, just watching the Descendants play. Because none of us had ever seen them.
I had seen them.
You had seen them?
When I was a kid. Me and Carl saw them.
Wow.
We're older than you, though.
Yeah, no, I totally did not see them in the OG times.
And then we saw All, the first All tour, which was a great.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
With Dave Smalley?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which was great. I love that. He's my favorite All singer, by the way.
I remember. I think you told me that once.
Speaking of MXPX, Saturday night at House of Blues in Dallas, I saw him.
Oh, yeah. They just came through.
I just saw him. I didn't get to hang out with Mike very much. We barely I showed up late to the show and the box office had already closed. And so they weren't even going to let me in. And I was like, I had passes, but the box office closed. But the security girl recognized me, so she let me in. But then as soon as the show was over, they had a meet and greet,
right?
Which had thousands of kids waiting in line. And I was like, later, dudes. But they did it. They put on a great show.
Yeah,
I saw about half the show, and they're still, and man, they still brought a crowd.
Yeah,
House of Blues was packed.
Yeah, my buddy Gary was there. I saw a bunch of pictures from that. Rarely make it up to Dallas for shows anymore, but.
Well, what about Austin, man? You got the good shows down here? I mean,
yeah, there is, of course.
I mean, Austin's always been known as like the live music capital of Texas, but it seems like that's getting less. Am I wrong? I
don't really know. I can't really say. Like, I don't go to enough shows on a regular basis to be able to say it. But
well, it's your fault. You're not going to the shows.
I think the venues have changed. Like Emo's is no longer downtown. Now it's in a new, bigger area, like a different area. And I think it's, the collective hub of like what is known as Deep Elm in Dallas is not the same.
Yeah, but I just see a lot of bands that come through on big tours. They're like, Austin's not their main stop in Texas anymore, it seems like.
Well, Dallas is. There's so many more people there. It's a metroplex.
And a bunch of big venues and a bunch of,
Yeah.
Dallas is overrun with music venues now. It's like every show, you're like, everything used to be at like one or two or three places. Now there's these.
Nokia out.
Now there's Nokia and Texas Trust and Toyota Pavilion and, Still the Bomb Factory and Still Trees and Still, all these other places.
That's mid-size though. Mid-size.
But it's spread out.
I was just telling someone the story about how you and I went to the Nokia theater one time to see, I don't know who it was, but I remember 30 Seconds to Mars was playing.
Oh, I think it was one of those like tours where it's like a bunch of bands on not a Warped Tour, but like one of those mini.
Maybe it was MXPX.
It was one of those mini tours that had like 10 bands or something.
Yeah, and
30 Seconds to Mars, but because Lisa Brownlee was working it.
Do you remember what happened? We were like, okay, we were in the lobby, like all the kids, the show was going on. 30 Seconds to Mars was playing, and we were in the lobby.
We were not watching 30 Seconds to Mars.
We were not. We were outside just talking, but Jared Leto did the gag where he takes the flag and runs around the crowd with the flag, and the spotlight chases him through the crowd and all that. And he busts through the lobby, and all the kids are chasing him. And he runs, and he gets like this close to us and looks at us both. And both of us kind of go, like, we're kind of like, what is this? And I remember we had that quick eye contact and moment where he was kind of like, this is kind of what I got to do, guys. and like they ran through, and like 100 kids followed him. And then we just started laughing because it was so random.
Totally random.
That was hilarious to me.
Totally random. That wasn't the MXPX at Nokia though, because the MXPX at Nokia was the time that I had the car crash with the band in the car on the way to the show, and we were late. That's you remember that story?
I do remember that.
Oh my God.
I was not in the car though.
No. Nobody was badly hurt. Small cuts and bruises.
Oh my God. Who did you hit? Who hit you?
Yeah, it was a hit and run for sure.
Oh my God.
We actually crashed into a parked car in a building.
Oh.
And literally this Jeep Cherokee, every window in the car smashed out. So we were all covered in broken glass with just cuts, small, tiny cuts from broken glass all over. And when we pulled to the back of to the show, pulled up to the back of the stage and got out of the car, like Mike and Tom both had they were bleeding in 10 little tiny spots on their face, but it looked worse because it's just like little blood running. And it's like the manager, Tommy Rad's like, what the fuck is going on? Y'all are killing. And they ran straight on the stage with
bloody,
still little nicks and cuts.
That was the most punk show they have ever played.
It was pretty amazing.
You're welcome, MXPX.
We survived
for that.
All right, so back to Justin Wilson. We got see this. What I love about these conversations is the tangents that just take you who knows where you're going to end up.
Yes, I'm happy to tangent with you. Anytime, Rumi.
Man,
I was hoping that would squeak.
So Justin Wilson here, like I said at the beginning, man of many talents. Been in some bands.
Yes.
You were in bands when I first met you.
Yeah, I was just thinking the other day when you said you were going to come down here, I was like, when was the first time I met you? And I remember.
It was before. Oh, you do?
Yes.
The very first time?
Yes.
Well, hot diggity.
The very first time I remember meeting you, I was dating Jennifer, and you came to the door to ask for money or give her money. Like at some point, there was a regular occurrence where there was a money.
Oh, we had
exchange.
some problems with that bitch for sure.
So there was some sort of issue where you were you either were paying her monthly or she was giving you money. I can't remember what it was.
That was some shit that Mike Bond finagled me into.
Yeah. I remember you coming by. In my impression, I was told that you were a jerk. Or, you weren't the greatest guy in the world.
Not to her.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So that was my only impression of you. So I remember seeing outside, looking out the window and just seeing you at the door making some sort of transaction. And then the next time you came over to do the same thing, I met you. And I remember thinking he seems pretty nice, but I think I was led to believe maybe that there was some sort of something that wasn't at the moment that wasn't kosher.
I mean, she sucked.
I don't remember what the actual issue was. I just remember meeting you and thinking, oh, he seems kind of nice, and then I getting tattooed by you not that long after and being like, oh, I actually like him. But I remember that not being totally probably what she
after
wanted.
y'all broke up.
No, I was getting
No.
tattooed but from you while we were still dating. I remember that because I remember that not being like, I think she was kind of like anybody but this guy. But I was like, oh no, he's really good. Your tattoos are good. And I don't know, I kind of liked Dan and I knew all those guys and they all got tattooed by you. So I was like, I'm going to go to him too. Cause like all my friends, like Rob, like everyone, they all got their Steve, everyone was getting tattooed by you. So I was like, I'm part of this group. Like I'm going to go to the same guy. It seems like that's what I'm supposed to do. And yeah, that's when I remember meeting you, was like coming over to Jennifer's house.
I didn't remember the meeting at Jennifer's house, but I do remember going back at some point to Mike Bond and being like, I did meet, maybe I tattooed you or we met or whatever. And Mike was your girlfriend's ex-husband,
right.
You know what I mean? My good type bro.
Yeah.
And he's just like, and the salt in the wound for him was that he loved Red Animal War.
He did?
Yeah. He loved your band, and then now you're fucking his ex-wife. And so that was like the fucking...
I didn't know him at all.
I know. Not saying you did. But that was the, he's like, oh, and I was like, he's a nice guy. Yeah, whatever, But the villain in the story is Jen.
Yeah.
Not you, not Mike, not me.
Yeah, I remember thinking that, I think my first tattoo was this.
I mean, that's the perfect first tattoo for an 18-year-old college girl.
At that point, I don't know. I was older than all of you guys. Like most of my friends had already had tattoos.
Yeah.
I think I was in my 20s, like mid 20s.
Oh yeah. Dan Phillips and Rob and Matt Hillier and Todd Deathridge and all them started getting tattooed right out of high school.
Yeah.
Like as soon as they turned 18.
I couldn't afford that. I was, yes.
You were a struggling musician.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I couldn't do it until I was a little bit older. I could like,
or you didn't have the rich parents like everybody else did.
I think you even hooked me up though. I remember.
Oh, I definitely hooked you up, bud.
You were like,
that's what I do.
You were like, oh, I'll hook you up. And I remember thinking like, I'm never going to anybody else. Like this guy gave me a great tattoo and it didn't cost that much money. And I was like, now I'm going to get tons of tattoos. Come here.
Hi, bud.
Who are you talking to? Come here. That's Neville. For anyone,
we got sweet Neville here. Usually back when we're recording a podcast back at home base, we've got Ricardo and Fred that chime in every once in a while. So
nice.
We like it.
Come here,
sweet boy. So when you started, what was the first band that you were in?
I was in like bands.
Tons of bands.
Yeah, I think the first band I was ever in was called Crummy Fred.
Never heard of that one.
No. I mean, the first band you would have heard of would probably have been Red Animal War, and then Saboteur, and then after that, it was like those are like the.
Well, I was kind of involved when Saboteur became a band.
Yeah.
We were friends, and it kind of I knew everybody that was in the band. And
I think I lived with you when we started.
Yeah, and it kind of came together, and that was really cool. And I was there when. Practices and songs were getting written, and that was like a really cool experience. Yeah. I love the experience I've had with my friends in bands like Slow Ride and Saboteur and the bands that I've seen form and grow, and just I was at a lot of Slow Ride practices.
Oh yeah, because they practice at the shop.
Yeah, and I was with Dan when he wrote a lot of songs, and like. Is this a good song or how should this go? Watching it come together. And it's such a cool process to see when people in bands and kind of see it come to life. And that's really cool. Red Animal War was just a band that we knew of before I knew you. And it was like, I guess a kind of a game-changing band. Like y'all did some weird shit and kind of had a couple of heavy influences and
definitely more of like a DC influenced type thing, Fugazi Jawbox type thing that it took us.
Controlled chaos is what I called it, but a lot of people call it like math rock or a lot of more orchestrated like complex overlayings of musics, which is what Red Animal War was kind of known for. Two drummers and just
Control chaos is good.
When you first hear it, you think maybe they're just going wild and jamming and who knows what they're doing. But then the more you listen to it, you realize that it's all very well methodically planned out.
Yeah, it's like 4 songs that kind of go together in certain places, but not. At this part of the song, these 2 parts don't really go together, but in the middle they do, that kind of thing.
Yeah, very cool. Red Animal War. How many albums did y'all make with that band?
Let's see, like 3 full albums, and then another like a full like B-sides album, and then a lot of like 7 inches and compilations. Hard to say, like in total, but yeah, we're still working on one right now.
Oh yeah. Well, Red Animal War, man, you had a kind of this weird cult following that every few years some show or event would con y'all into doing a reunion or whatever. And
usually
it was
around this time of the year.
And it was always like getting somebody to come in from out of town and everybody trying to get their practice. And it was like, people just did not want to let that band go. Yeah. People kept urging that shit to reemerge. And so you're working on some more shit with the same guys now.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff's in the military, so we haven't gotten anything from Jeff, but everyone else has contributed. This is the first time that we've done like, we haven't gone in a room together and then like worked it out together. It's like I'm working everything out and then gives it to everyone else and they do what they do at home.
Modern technology.
Yeah. It's the first time we've ever done that. I mean, that was available to us back then, but we didn't, I never liked that. I always wanted to like do it in person.
Yeah.
But now it's like we all live in different cities, literally. So,
and this is literally 30 years later.
Yeah.
From when the band started.
Yes. 97, I think, is when we started. Around that time.
I mean, you gotta be one of those. You got to be running for the most reconnects.
Yeah.
Most bands don't reconnect this many times.
I mean, it's been great to kind of see everyone's input after having been away from it for a while. And Brian Foe, especially, we've been kind of working, even though he's in LA, we've been working closely on, he'll give me his bass tracks and then we'll kind of manipulate it and then he'll do it again because he wants it to be better. And then, so we've been kind of working closely on doing that. Matt Pittman's been giving us some tracks. He's still not done with his. And then hoping that we can get Jeff, even though right now he's like in Korea, serving. But he's been in the military so long. I think in a few years he'll be retired from the military.
Wow.
Which is crazy because, you're in there for like decades or whatever.
Yeah. Wow. So what's Brian doing out in LA? Is he playing music a bunch or is he doing something else or?
No, he's programming. He's like, he writes code for a company that does like shipping.
He's a weird genius guy.
Yeah. He's super, super smart. He does like shipping freight. He like manages huge amounts of like freight and he programs code to like make that happen. I've actually asked him about it recently and I don't get it.
Weird.
But yeah, it's people that understand how to write code. Never learn how to write code.
I don't want to.
I don't either. It seems hard.
Ah, man.
But it's profitable, I guess.
I guess. Does he still look like a rock star? That's
of course
the question.
He does. Of course he does. I don't think his hair's as long. Remember when his hair used to be like?
Oh, yeah. So what is the plan with this project? Is it to play some shows or just release some music or just...
I mean, everyone's so spread out. I think it's just to have another full set. Like I know the thing now is to like release singles but we're just going to make another album because we're old. And that's what I know is to make albums. It's hard for me to think about like, releasing, like to constantly be doing what you have to do as a band today. It's like, we're not going to do that. We're not going to be like on tour half the year. We're not going to be releasing singles every 3 months or whatever you have to do. It's like, we're just going to put out another album. If people like it, great.
Yeah.
A few people will get it.
Somebody will like it.
Still got a few little, few fans out there. So
is that the only current music project you're involved with?
I write music for the movies that I make or even the movie
soundtrack stuff.
Yeah. Stuff. Even if I'm just editing a movie, I will invariably end up making music for it because there's so much music that has to go in a movie. You can't have dead air. Yeah. I mean,
you gotta have sound.
It's like, even when we have a composer, sometimes that composer does like his 14, 15 songs for the movie, but they're still like, oh, when this person turns the corner, there's got to be a thing here. So I'm like making the music for the little scenes whenever the real composer is done, is onto a new project. And we don't want to like try to rehash that person, like get back into that. I'm like, I can do it. I have like music here and I can make little stuff. Sometimes I do, like for Filmage, I did like a lot of like the parts that were like sad or whatever, like whenever like
just some ominous tones.
Yeah, when Bill's going through his health issues, or whenever they're like, oh, nobody likes all, there's like some kind of like smooth, ominous tones that are in there. Like I'm doing all that because it's like, yeah, I can. And we need that, instead of it just being silent, So I do a lot of that sometimes for other people's movies, just little pieces of music here and there.
Well, as far as editing goes, man, you do a lot. I mean, over the years, you've worked for companies that edited a lot of product.
Yeah.
We were just talking about a minute ago, just modern technology and software that helps you edit and stuff. I know you were saying you've seen this happen, but have you implemented it yourself, or you just know that it exists and seen other people use it?
As far as the podcast editing?
Well, just as far as like using some sort of, AI-ish.
I mainly have still been manually doing almost everything, but I have seen where like on a podcast setup like this, where there's 3 cameras, where it just chops it up and edits it, and whoever's talking, it knows to focus on that person. We've also got a thing now, I'm working on a new project where you can transcribe like everything that we're saying. And then if you want to say like, go to the part where they talk about Red Animal War, it just goes straight
search
to that.
it.
Yeah, because it recognizes what we're saying. So that is an AI plugin.
So when you have a bank of hundreds of hours of footage and you're trying to find that spot to section out a minute or 30 seconds to throw in a certain spot, you can find it easy without having to watch an hour of footage.
Yeah, you just type in Red Animal War and it just goes to that section. And they have it now where you type it, and when you click it, it just puts it down into the timeline, the edit timeline. So they have it to where you don't have to do much now to actually edit.
But you're using that. Or you have.
Yeah, like I've a little bit, not really, not too much, because I just haven't had to, because most of the projects I've just been doing manually. But now it's like, it's just a new tool that I guess I'll start using. I don't know. I prefer to do like narrative, like film projects where that's not really applicable. But, being an editor, you end up doing some projects that you need it for, documentaries especially. I keep saying I'm done doing documentaries, but I keep doing them. So,
well, you just are in the final stages of polishing up and finishing the Friday 13th the documentary that revolves around myself and Elm Street Tattoo and interviews people from all over the world about it. We did a showing at Texas Theater just for our cast and crew and friends last month, and it was pretty cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah, it's just a short little, less than 30-minute documentary for a short film festival kind of joint. But y'all can look forward to seeing that pretty soon, because it's going to be available at some point.
Well, we talked about June 13th.
Friday 13th, June 2025.
Putting it out. No, it's this year. Now we're in 2025.
Yeah.
So we can say this year, in June, we'll put it on the internet for all to see, unless something else happens. But I think that's the plan.
Very cool. Very cool. So from editing years ago to editing now, is obviously technology is every year. There's some new, your software is upgraded. How much quicker is it to edit something now than it was?
A little bit. I wouldn't say it's like...
it's obviously way quicker than when you had film.
Yeah.
But
I really got into doing it right after that. When I got
beginning
into
of the digital era, right?
Well, no, actually, I got into editing when like at my college, we were doing tape to tape. So basically using like 3/4 tapes or VHS and like doing you have these wheels that you turn. And that's kind of how I learned, which actually I did that in high school now I think about it, for the high school news in Longview, Texas. But yeah, I started that way, and I never actually used the cut in the film and the taping it. That was like...
You would just record the sections
Yes.
off the tape
Yes.
and then blank those in.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Doing actual film editing kind of stopped like really like only a year or two before I started getting like heavily into it and like having classes. So I've mainly been, it was still analog, I mean, digital sources, but still an analog format. But I started using digital, like fully digital, like on a computer with a mouse editing not long after that. Basically, I like UTA, where I was going to school in Arlington, they didn't have much computer editing. Everything was tape to tape. So I left school and got an internship at a post house where they were using computers. And that's where I actually started to actually learn like how to actually edit with a computer. And that was quick comparatively to using tape shit. So that's kind of like, that was 95, 96, that area, or no, it was 97. Is when I actually got into like actually editing with a computer, 98 probably. It hasn't really changed that much for me, honestly. Everything's
just gotten more accessible and easier and smaller. Like now you have a small MacBook instead of a big computer.
Yeah, the drives have gotten faster and you can get more space. And the images are now a certain size where they used to be. Like we used to, like the first QuickTimes we put out were like tiny and like, they look like Legos, you know. I remember when we first had QuickTime, we were like, like, I can't believe someone would want to look at this, you know, because they were like, they look like Legos. And but it actually hasn't gotten super, like the drives and everything has gotten better, but the tools have pretty much stayed the same. Like, here's your cut, here's your timeline. Like the main idea of it has stayed pretty true for me. And there's some people that have advanced, I'm sure, to like crazy things, but it's mainly the same approach.
Well, like the stuff you're talking about with the automatic editing sequence, a lot of people are saying that like with AI and with the new technology, it's going to take a lot less man hours and a lot less people involved. And
I think that's true. I think narrative films are the next thing that's going to start doing that, where it's going to start knowing like, okay, here's the script and like edit the movie for me. You know, we don't need an editor because you have the script and you have.
Yeah, but the inflection of if you have 5 takes, who's going to pick the best take? Is the AI going to pick the best take, or is a person going to have to be like, ooh, the way he says it right here is better?
Yeah, I mean, that's still where the human element is still needed. I mean, usually on set, they circle like, oh, we like the 4th one. There were 7 of them. We like number 4. So then you just tell the computer, hey, 4th one. So you at least get to see your first edit was the one that you thought was the best. And then maybe you go back and change it. But I still think it's coming, or if it's probably already here for some people.
I've had some conversations with some artists, about AI, and it's just not very. A lot of people aren't really open to the idea of the computer generated being considered art.
No.
I think when it's a technical skill like editing, maybe there's some leeway there. But as far as like creating
original works.
Yeah, like you're going to frame it and put it on the wall and it's just something that the computer just shit out. It's fucking weird.
It's derivative.
It's weird. It's
derivative of humans already. So it's like, it doesn't, I'm not a fan of like all that stuff at all.
I'm not even a fan of when people create it digitally. Like create the art digitally, like on an iPad or on a tablet or something. And it's just a printout. There's no real substance that exists, and it's just code. There's not a canvas with paint on it. It's just.
I mean, they've gotten it pretty now where like you can use like feathered pencils.
I know, but it still doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, you print it out, and when you print it out, it's just a photocopy.
Yeah.
It's not an original work of art.
There's no medium.
The only original art is computer dust.
Yeah.
It's not real. I mean, I think people are spending a lot of time on their iPad making art, and they should just throw that thing in the trash and get a canvas and some paint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how you learned. So like that's what you're nostalgic for. But like kids today, they're going to think that.
I know they're going to want to print it out and put it in the frame and put it on the wall. Like, look, this is the art I made.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a printout.
I mean, it's still art,
It's
right?
a printout. I mean, technically
It's artistic.
it is.
It may
but
not
it's-
be a physical.
I think that it's
It's not as. It definitely doesn't have the same physicality to it, which kind of.
I don't want it.
Yeah, like I mean, your house, you have like 1,000
Original framed art.
Yeah, like of original art that was like painstakingly made with like a pen and paint and temper or whatever, all the different stuff.
And even the stuff that I have that is a print, it's a print of something that somebody did. You know, like one of 100 prints that they made off of this art they made.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna just make it on the computer and then print out 100 prints, the original is the print. There's no original to back that up.
Yeah. You don't ever do that, I guess.
What's that?
Make like stuff in Photoshop.
Just for
completely.
T-shirts.
Yeah, but I'm saying like not artwork. You don't ever do that.
No, just I mean when I'm making T-shirts, I take the art, you put it on the computer, I separate the color layers, and I make the screens to print a T-shirt of it.
Yeah, but that's
T-shirt.
Yeah, that's not like I mean, which is a physical thing in and of itself, instead of just like a piece of paper that you've printed out from your computer.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of the old grumpy guy now that is like resistant to technology.
Yeah,
I've embraced a certain amount of technology that has happened in the last couple of decades that I'm a part of, but the future of technology is just like it's
garbage.
It's not exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, any sort of like AI input on your art, I feel like every time I see, even when I see like a 4K scan of a film, what was it, like Terminator or something that I saw the other day, and they like, they're doing like AI upscales.
Enhancements.
Yeah. And like the people in the backgrounds, like their eyes are like AI, like kind of weird. And it's like, no one wants to see
like
that.
It didn't have detail before they were out of focus.
Yes.
And now it's like,
yeah. And you're seeing like fake eyes on background characters and shit.
yeah,
I agree. Like I feel like all of that, we're like really jumping the shark as far as like how to enhance old movies or whatever. Doesn't seem legitimate to me, but I'm not James Cameron. So who am I to say?
yeah. Well, I think James Cameron is definitely someone who is always push the limit of what's technologically available.
Yes.
Like his early movies, he was still like every resource of technology, the newest, the latest, the greatest, the very birth of CGI and all that kind of stuff. He was like, embrace it from the start.
Yeah. Well, I think that's always been good, except for this latest iteration of whatever this AI stuff is. I'm not a fan of it, but
I mean, I don't like it when you take an old movie and like make it look crisper or whatever they do to it.
Yeah.
It looks like, even when you take The Big Lebowski and just put it on Blu-ray and then you watch it and it doesn't look like an old movie.
Yeah.
It looks like a brand new TV show. It has like all the grit is gone. Like I watch it on VHS and it looks right. It looks perfect, like what it's supposed to look like.
I mean, I guess if it's a 4K film scan, I can understand. But yeah, I think like the enhancement is where I get like thrown off of like that stuff. I mean, I appreciate like, all the work that filmmakers put into like keeping like all the work that Scorsese does on old films, keeping them updated and keeping them fresh and digitized. But yeah, I think now
so that they exist.
Yes, but now we're starting to move into an area where they're changing it. Like I was never a fan of Lucas, like putting weird new like stuff in the original Star Wars,
adding new scenes,
like CGI in OG Star Wars. I feel like that's like
that was just a reason to release another DVD box set.
Yeah, but they changed, like they changed the song and the thing, and like it's a different thing. And like there's like all these CGI moments that didn't exist in the original. That kind of stuff, I was not a fan of that either. But
well, like I said,
he can do what he wants.
They wanted to sell another DVD box set. Updated.
I guess. I mean, I don't even know if it was that as much as just like he can't quit screwing with it. He can't quit like oh, I don't want Han to shoot first. All this kind of stuff.
Oh man. I kind of like the Hun that shot first.
Of course. He was bad.
He's a fucking rebel, dude. He's
Yes.
a smuggler.
Yeah, I can't believe they changed that.
He's a smuggler. They try to make him a good. I mean, he's a badass.
Yeah, he was. I mean, that's what makes those are the most
He
interesting
was like
characters.
the Clint Eastwood of space, is what he's
Yes.
supposed to be, right?
And it's like people that make mistakes and are bad are more interesting to watch. It's more interesting to watch people that are like extremely flawed than to watch like exalted heroes that never fuck up. You know, that's not any fun to me. It's like I want my protagonist, especially now in this anti-hero age, where like the most interesting characters are.
Dude, every show you watch now, like whoever the good guy is, has so many skeletons in a closet.
Yeah.
It's like every turn they're like hiding what they've done or what they really are.
I've been talking to Milburn about the new Perry Mason, and he's just like, I'm not into it.
I haven't even seen the new Perry Mason.
It's so good.
Is
It's
it really?
so good. Yes.
Is it based modern time?
No,
Or is it
it's-
based in the 60s?
It's actually before that. It's when Perry Mason, it's before he became the lawyer
Okay.
that he is.
I haven't
It's
seen
like,
it.
Because it basically starts as him not as a lawyer. He's like an investigator or something, and stuff goes wrong. And he kind of gets railroaded into being a lawyer because he's trying to help this woman. He doesn't even want to be a lawyer. And so it's how Perry Mason came to be a lawyer. It's got a cult in it. It's like, it's real good. I don't even know if HBO like still streams it though. Like the way that they do it now, they're like, here's a new show. And then like a year later, like it's gone. There's no DVD. There's no Blu-ray. You can't watch it on your thing. So if you didn't watch it, it's out. So
Yeah.
I don't even know if you
Well,
can-
there's too much. There's too much content.
yeah.
I mean, every network has 100 shows that only make it one season,
Yeah.
you know, and it's just like, if a show doesn't make it 4, 5, 6 seasons, it's out, it's gone.
No
It's a
shows
win.
make 6 seasons anymore almost.
Man. There's been a few shows that I was bummed that they didn't keep going.
Like what?
That Carnival series.
Oh, I always wanted to watch that. That was a while ago. on
Yeah, but
HBO.
they made 2. It was supposed to be 3 seasons,
Mm.
and each season was very elaborate. And they made 1. It was incredible. It was acclaimed. It was like
Yeah.
the number 1 show of the
Nick
history.
Stahl was in it.
And
I remember.
then season 2 was incredible. And then season 3 got canceled. They never made it. And they said the budget was too high or blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
or this and that. So they just, now who wants to go back and watch episodes 1 and 2 of a trilogy without a third episode that exists,
Yeah.
without a third season that exists?
I don't even know if you can stream that one anymore. It's been so long.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's great things out there that they've just become unavailable.
Yeah, but it used to be like, it didn't matter if they don't, like, it used to be you could get a box set of stuff you wanted to watch. And if you actually wanted to see it, you could pull it out and put it in your DVD player.
Not anymore.
But now it's like Netflix makes no,
Hard copies of
yeah.
anything.
So like, it's really weird to exist in a time. And that's the same with movies too, which is even weirder. I can understand with TV shows, there's so much, but like, even with movies now, you like, if you don't see the movie while it's out, and it just disappears. It goes into the ether unless you know someone that like worked on it and has like a rough copy with like the time code at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't exist like it used to. You could always get the DVDs or you could always get the VHS eventually, of stuff you wanted to see.
I mean, I would say that there's probably that same thing going on with music right now. There's probably a lot of music that's on Spotify that you cannot buy the album.
Mm-hmm. I still don't have Spotify. I don't have any like music streaming.
You don't have Spotify?
I have no.
Oh.
I have none of it. I was always like, oh, even though I'm not like a serious musician going tour anymore, it still just felt like so. When that came out, I was just like, oh, I'm not going to do that, and then I just never did.
I do love Spotify. I do listen to Spotify every single day.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
you can get whatever you need.
And at the tattoo shop, it's like we have Spotify, and
yeah.
it's like everything you could ever want to listen to. There's like the amount of things that aren't on Spotify is almost harder to find.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You try to find something that's not on there, good luck. It's probably on there.
Yeah. I mean, we'll probably, when we finish this, that'll be the first time I've, put anything on there, ever dealt with it or even like opened it up. But I think I was just like feeling so like angsty towards like the payout towards musicians.
You do hear some controversy about bands getting paid very little for their amount of music that's on Spotify.
Yeah.
And I have this thing with Spotify that I like to listen to the whole album.
Sure.
And I don't like to listen to something unless I like the whole album.
I
so
agree.
I pick a specific album that I like every song on, and I play that whole album. And when it's done, I pick another whole album. I don't just like let it randomly play. But what Spotify does, which is what they all do, as soon as your selected choice is over, they keep playing.
Yeah.
So they just play whatever they think goes with what you're listening to.
Sure.
But then you start noticing that, like, I played the Cars, and as soon as the Cars is over, they play like, they may play another Cars song that's not on a different record. And then they play this one certain song. And you're like, man, that doesn't really go with the Cars very well. Like they play Waiting Room by Fugazi.
Yeah.
You're like, that's kind of weird. And then you listen to Devo. And then after Devo, they play Waiting Room by Fugazi.
Yeah.
And then you listen to Tom Petty. And after Tom Petty, they play, I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you playing? And then there's the suggested music is very slim. It's like very repetitive and I'm like, there's got to be some sort of deal where there's certain music that they have to pay less for.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well, now they're making AI bands.
Oh yeah,
Did you hear about that?
But I'm saying Spotify, when they play your band on Spotify, they give you a fraction of a penny or whatever.
Sure.
But when they play a Beatles song, they pay more money.
Oh, sure.
To the Beatles, whoever owns the Beatles song.
They don't want to.
So they don't ever just throw a Beatles song in there. They're not going to give, they're not going to spend that money. They're going to play all this random low stuff that they don't have to pay very much for. Yeah. And they just play it a bunch and to fill the space so that you're constantly listening or whatever.
Yeah.
But
yeah, now I've read this thing yesterday where they're like making AI music that they don't have to pay anything for. So that's what's feeding next is like, instead of being whatever they used to give you where they had to pay 0.00001%.
They pay zero.
Yeah. Now it's like, it's just AI, like elevator music.
And you just listen to it not knowing that.
Yeah. Cause you think, oh, it's a band that I've never really heard of. But it's just like some AI.
Did you hear about the guy that made some AI music?
Oh, and he got in big trouble.
Well, he just got on AI and had it make some songs.
Yeah.
And he called it a band and he loaded it onto Spotify. So that this is my band, I'm on Spotify. Every time it plays, I'm going to get my fraction of a penny or whatever. But then he got on AI and linked up to made an AI make a bot.
Oh, yeah.
The bot's job was to go to Spotify and choose that song and listen to it. And then that bot made a bot. And he had thousands of these regenerative AI bots that were all just going to Spotify and playing. And so he was getting royalties for all these listenings that was just all fake.
Yeah.
And
he went to jail or something.
They caught on to it and they had to, I don't know.
All right, I know that he was like, definitely the law got involved.
He got in trouble.
You can't do this.
But I wonder how many people were listening to this band thinking that it was a band.
Yeah, well, that's smart.
So is none of your previous bands are on Spotify now?
I don't even know.
We're going to have to look. Let's have our IT tech look up and see if Saboteur is on Spotify. Who's in charge of the Saboteur catalog? Would that be?
I don't know if I don't know.
Who was the record label? InSounds?
InSounds at one point.
So Jonathan.
But I don't know if Jonathan's
Jonathan put it on Spotify and he's making dollars.
That's how he's living.
He's making dollars.
He's just crushing it. Yeah. He's like, that's what he's living off of. High on the hog, off Saboteur streams.
Because Slow Ride's on Spotify.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure all of our bands are on Spotify. But
that's what I'm curious.
I should know these things. I should.
But what you're saying is you're not getting a check every month.
No. Yeah, I think I tried to stay out of like back then.
The business end?
I tried to a degree because it was so encompassing. You're doing so much. And I always wanted to partner with someone like Jonathan who was happy to do those things. so I could keep writing songs and staying on tour and like not get bogged down into the numerals. But you know, not the best way to do it. You got to be in charge of all of it, especially now. You can't delegate anything to anybody else. You have to like own your own means of production. You know, just the way it goes.
We got any words?
There's probably like 14 bands called Saboteur on.
Actually, there is a different band called Saboteur.
But it's also spelled slightly.
No, ours is
Just spelled normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely not their band.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw like a few years ago there was like a new band called that. I'm like,
What about Red Animal War? We got Red Animal War on there.
hopefully only one of those exists. That's like it sounds like some band name that an AI would come up with.
That's you guys.
Yeah, we're on there.
So if y'all guys want to check out Justin Wilson's band Red Animal War, it's on Spotify.
Yeah,
You can check it out. Somebody is getting paid from that.
a ton.
I don't know if they're getting paid a ton, but somebody's getting paid something, and
Yeah.
it's not you,
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Brian Foe.
we are registered with
ASCAP.
publishing company.
Yeah.
I'm on CSAC, but same thing, same difference.
Oh yeah, the Red Animal War Slow Ride Split is on there.
Oh yeah, with the photo from the Sixth Floor Museum as the cover. That was a great time period in our lives with our brother band, sister band, whatever you want to call it. Slow Ride. I remember one time we went to Amsterdam and we were on tour and Slow Ride was there. And we met up in Amsterdam and had like a crazy night. They were ending their tour and we were beginning ours. It's like one of my favorite slow ride memories.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. We just were like, I think we maybe played a show together there. I can't remember, but yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, that's another Dallas band that people always wanted. They wanted to get that band to play again or come back or reunion or play shows. And
They did that
It
a
is-
couple times.
they did it a couple times and it went bad a couple of times.
It did?
And then Dan's like, I'm not doing that anymore.
They played with us. We did one.
It went great a few times.
Yeah.
It went great a few times, but then it did go sour a few times. And
Because Dan's like, I can't remember how to play these songs.
I mean, I tried to get them to play a few times when they did, and it worked out great. And then I tried to get them more, and they wouldn't do it. But every time, Bobby Marchand and Steve were 100% in.
Yeah.
And Dan was like, I don't know. So
It was great seeing Dan at the 13 documentary premiere the other night.
it was. He sent me a message saying he was very glad that he came.
Oh,
It was very cool. And the old footage is very nostalgic for a few of us,
yes.
that were there at that time. And highly commented on is the Richard Smith scene.
Yes. Everybody's favorite. It's always a good feeling when you put in a documentary or put any movie really, and you sit and watch it with the first crowd and there's laughs. Because, if there's not, it's tough. But luckily we had a bunch of good laughs that night and people liked it and people laughed when I would hope that they would laugh.
What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Legacy Ink, the finest in tattoo pigments. I've been using this ink exclusively for over 20 years myself. It has been recently rebranded and marketed, but it has been the same recipe for decades. Real, hand-mixed tattoo pigments that heal great and last. People always comment on the yellow that I use and the yellow tattooed on me, my favorite, the Mayan yellow. I have seen countless 20-plus-year-old tattoos with the colors still vivid. Don't duck around with all these newfangled companies with their watered-down baloney. Get the tried, true, and tested good shit. You can find them on Instagram at Legacy Pigments or email Ashley today to place an order at legacyartsupplies@gmail.com. Tell them Oliver sent you and receive a special discount. Don't just do tattoos. Be part of a legacy. Yeah, the 13 documentary came out. It came out really. It's short and sweet, but it has a real genuine feel, and it has a real the whole thing has a behind the scenes feel, you know,
Mhm.
which is kind of what you want with a documentary. You want to feel like it's an insider look into what's happening. And you kind of just, you feel like, for me, it's hard to look at it subjectively because it's every Friday 13th for the last 30 years for me. It's like, but it just has it has that perfect feel of just like, this is just this organic thing that we're just peeping in on. And, you know, it's like most people in the tattoo industry at all know, obviously, that there's a thing with Friday 13th, and they know that there's a, you know, it is a deal. And most people kind of know that my side of the history of it, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you know, every Friday 13th, somebody asked me, like, hey man, are you the one that started this shit? And I was like,
kind of.
I mean, that's the story. There's a documentary. You can watch it. Coming out June 13th.
I mean, it's kind of like a good primer for people that don't know anything about it. It kind of like catches you up, but it's also like there's so many people. I was trying to explain this the other day to somebody who was asking me about it. Like there's so many people with the 13 now, like all over the world that like, they were like, oh, is anyone really going to understand this? I was like trying to explain, like, I was like, I don't think I can express like the amount of people that can be like, oh, I have one of those. Like the number of people that can say, oh, I did that one time is in the hundreds of thousands.
Oh, it's insanity.
If not the millions.
It's insanity.
Easily.
I mean, I go all over the world and people will always be like, hey, I got a 13 tattoo.
Yes.
And they'll anywhere I'm at, and they'll like show this tattoo. And a lot of times it's one that I drew on a piece of flash.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's off my flash. And they're like, oh man,
I got this in Tokyo.
Yeah. Or Iceland or Wichita, Kansas, or anywhere, you know, it's just like, it's pretty crazy. And it's, I remember in like the turn of the century, the early 2000s, when we had been doing Friday 13th pretty crazy for, you know, every Friday 13th for years. And then 2001, it was like 24-hour marathon, and every year from there. So it's like my friends that were tattooing would like come to Dallas, and they knew what Friday 13th was, and they did Friday 13th tattoos, and they'd seen them in their town, but they'd come to Dallas and they're just like, man, every person I see has a 13 tattoo. Yeah. The person at Target, the person made my coffee, the waitress at breakfast, every single person in Dallas. Yeah. It's their perception. Yeah. So like every single person in Dallas has a 13 tattoo. It is crazy, you know? And it's,
yeah, I think.
And it's kind of true. I mean, if you have a tattoo and you live in Dallas, you probably got a 13. Maybe not from Elm Street, or maybe not from me, but you probably got a 13.
I was going to say, like, it doesn't even matter if it's Elm Street or not. It's just like the idea and it being so profitable for shops, I think, spread so quickly, because it's like, how many opportunities are there really like that in a tattoo shop where you can like have a line out the door? And like, even if you have like a known tattoo artist coming in town, you usually don't have like lines out the door or whatever. Yeah. So it's like, you know, those are like appointments you got to set up.
Well, when we first started doing the Friday 13th, we would have, you know, there'd be a line down the street. Yeah. And the news would come. Yeah. And they'd just be like, hey, what's going on here? We're just the news. We're just seeing what's happening. And we're like, oh, we're doing Friday 13 tattoos. You know what I mean? And I thought it was cool in the documentary that there's
all those
news clippings from other cities that have no clue about Elm Street or when it started. They're just like, hey, apparently there's a bunch of people in line in front of a tattoo shop on Friday 13th, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, and it's this anomaly that's everywhere. And the people here aren't aware of the people here, but they're all doing it anyway. Yes. It just kind of one of those things that spread before the internet. Yes. And became a thing before the internet. So it just always exists. Yes. When something new happens right now, everybody finds out about it on the internet. Yeah. So it spreads in one 24-hour cycle, and the whole world knows about it instantly. Mm-hmm. And then it's like everybody kind of knows where it came from. Mm-hmm. Because I saw it on YouTube this morning.
Yeah, you can get to where.
But when something's existed so long, the origin is just kind of like folklore. Yes, you know what I mean, and that's kind of what the Friday 13th tattoo has become, and I think that's pretty fucking cool.
I didn't tell you, I did this interview for an NPR station of this, like just a few days ago, about Friday the 13th, because this woman hit me up. She was like, email me like, hey, I heard you're doing a Friday the 13th documentary. And I was like, man, I made one post about a cast and crew screening, and NPR is already like calling me up, interviewing me. And we did this whole thing. I had to explain it to her. I sent her a copy of the doc or whatever. And she was like, oh, this would be great for my story. Actually, I need to hit her back up, see what the story is. But I will say that one thing that I realized doing this documentary is news stations love Friday 13th, this story. And that's why there's so many of them. It's because it's a short, I don't exactly know why, but like, I mean, I put like, there's probably 20 news clips in the doc, but there's probably
there's 1,000 of them.
Yeah. 20,000 on the internet. We're like, here's a little story. So I try to like get some that are like spread around all around the country or whatever. But it is wild how much morning news shows love this phenomenon. Like they all have it set up like the NPR thing. Like they knew that there was going to be a Friday 13th story. So she hit me up a few days before. And like, it was like, it's very deliberate on news stations' parts, because you can get the story in a short thing. You can kind of open up the idea of like, maybe it started here, maybe it started here. So you have that little part of the news story. Then you can have the lines and the crowd, and you have that. And then you interview one tattoo artist or two tattoo artists, and they talk about it. It's like the perfect little encapsulation of a 5-minute news story, 3-minute news story. And there's so many of them. I couldn't believe it, how many there are.
And it's also funny how like you see a bunch of those short news clippings, how similar they are.
Yes.
When we don't know, like, does this trickle down from above where it's like, go do this, and everybody goes and does that? Or is everybody just gravitating?
Oh, like the
towards
Sinclair thing where they're all saying the same thing. It is like that, where I do think that like on June, they're already set up. I guarantee you all the news stations, so like they already know they're going to do their June, because there's only one next year for this year. So they already know like it's going to be, I bet it'll be massive in 2025, because the only time it's going to happen. So every news station's like, we got to do our Friday 13th there. Like I was stunned. Like I could have done a documentary just
on
explaining it, just taking news clips and spreading it over for the whole time. And you could have got, because like a few of them do mention, like at the beginning of it, like that one person's like, that guy's like, oh, some people say it's like a shop in Dallas that was, I forgot how he explains it now, but he's like, you know, a shop in Dallas who was highly aggressive about trying to do the idea. And like, so like they do, a lot of them just don't even try to even figure out like anything with Elm Street. They just like,
no, it's like,
no one knows where it started, but it's happening all the time. And it's like, you can tell which one of them like actually digs into the history, and which of them are like, screw that. We don't care how it started. We're going to act like we don't know. And that'll make the news story more interesting, because it's like this, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's like the wheel happened over here. And then it also happened on this continent. How did it happen? It all happened at the same time. It's like, there is actually an origin here, which is why we made the doc, right?
Yeah.
Which is funny, because I pulled a lot of that doc from the slip-isode that we made. Most people will not remember this, but Oliver and I made what we called slip-isodes, which was ahead of its time, kind of like internet.
It was very ahead of its time.
internet videos.
We're visionaries here.
That we only knew how to promote them from the MySpace wall.
Oh yeah.
The bulletin board, excuse me, not the wall, the bulletin board.
I love the bulletin board.
So the MySpace bulletin board is how we got our slip-isodes out, which for those of you listening that don't know what that is, it's when Oliver had his own Vans shoe line made by Vans Shoes.
They were slip-on
Vans shoes.
And we made little episodes about the shoes.
Yes.
And they were slip-isodes.
Yes. And
I don't know. I don't remember who coined the term slip-isode. It might have been you.
It was you.
Okay, well then I'll take
Maybe
credit.
It was Aaron.
It was.
But regardless, we made 13 slip-isodes, And each one was a different thing. Like the first one was kind of like the primer. The second one was like Friday the 13th tattoo marathon thing. And then it became different. One that were like the fourth one I remember was the MXPX music video we did. And they were like holding your shoes. And we were like, they were in some music video in LA. We like flew to LA. You were in the music video.
In LA River.
Yeah. And I'm like filming behind the scenes of the music video, but for a slip-episode. We're like, we went nuts. And I remember Kurt released them on the Vans podcast, the very first Vans podcast, back when they started that. I think it was called a podcast back then.
I think it might have not been a podcast. It might have just been they released it was off the wall TV is what they were calling it.
They released it through Vans.
Yeah, it was like
some of them.
It was on the website and YouTube, I think. But
they released some of them, but some of them were like, yeah, we'll skip this one because we had, we were filling up these episodes. The one where you like
crash
the car. They were like, yeah, we'll skip that one. So yeah, if you want to go on my YouTube channel and
I
watch,
think we've linked them all to no, we haven't. Oh yeah, we need to link these slip-episodes to the What in a Duck YouTube channel.
Oh,
too,
that would be smart.
So that people can
say like, wow, these guys are old as shit.
Yeah.
They've been doing this a long time.
I was young. I saw, there's an excerpt in like you were saying, in the documentary from the slip-episode.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, damn, I look like so young. It's crazy.
Oh,
it's a long time ago.
You mean when we were...
I'm sitting on that couch in Christina's house, right?
That's when Jeff Bednar's and Mark Thomas and those guys filmed you on 35 millimeter.
Yes.
And you were doing that interview.
And you did the Saboteur video at the same time. With the same 35 millimeter.
Yes, yes. We were so lucky. Thank you, Jeff Bednar's, for doing that for us.
I remember there's a scene in that video where Rob is playing bass.
Yeah.
And the camera like comes in, it's this beautiful cinematic, and you see the skyline behind, and then it focuses in on the bass and the bass strings. You can see every vibration of the bass string in this like high, crisp 35 millimeter slow-mo, and it's the coolest thing.
Yes. We were like,
wow.
I think that was 2007, 2008.
No, it's cool.
Like that. Yeah.
I mean, that would have been that era because I mean, it's 2008 Warped Tour was the year that the shoes were out to the world. So we had filmed all that stuff before the shoes were produced. You know what I mean? So we had the samples of the shoes.
Oh, that's right. We were working with the samples and the empty boxes.
Yeah.
We had like hundreds of empty boxes.
We had one of each shoe.
Yeah.
And that's all we had. And we were filming these videos acting, in one of the skits in the videos, we were acting like we were selling the shoes out of the back of a van.
On the side of the road or in the parking lot.
And so I had all these empty, I told Kurt, I was like, hey, can I get some van shoe boxes? How many? It's like, I don't know, like 100. It's like, what are you going to do with 100? Like, we're
going to pretend
so
like
they mailed me 100 empty shoe boxes.
Oh, I wondered how you got all those
so
boxes.
I could film this thing, and I had this van full of shoe boxes, but everybody, and we're on the side. Remember the code enforcement showed up and said, you can't sell shoes here. And we're like, we're not selling shoes here.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, oh, you're obviously selling shoes here. And I'm like, no, we're just filming a skit. We're making jokes. Look, all these shoe boxes are empty. And they're like, looked in, and they started opening all the empty shoe boxes, and they're like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah. That was like right down the street from Anchor.
And you got a video of the code enforcement trying to throw us out.
I remember editing it to make it look like we got in big trouble. Even though they were like, all right, have a good day. But it ends where
what's
like,
funny is the reason I got that idea is because there was months before somebody was on that corner selling like bootleg stuff.
Oh, really?
Like purses and sneakers and stuff. They had their little van set out and had tables.
Oh.
And I was like, we should do that.
I didn't know that. I do remember being in that parking lot and you walking next to people and like Dean's wife at the time.
Trying to sell them a shoe.
Yeah. And like, hey, what do you think about these shoes? Like walking with people as they're walking into Target. And then like the manager from Target and the security from Target
came out. You can't do that here.
Yeah. They came out and they were mad and they were like, you got to get out of here. And I remember trying to like blur their face. The first time I'd ever blurred anyone's face.
And then I was like, hey, look, we're not really selling shoes. We're just making a funny video.
They still made us leave.
Yeah. They still made us leave.
That's when you like hit that car. You were like, all right, maybe we should go to a different parking lot. I mean, it was a big van.
It was.
It was just a little scratch.
Had a blind spot.
Yeah, blind spot. I think it was just a little scratch. I remember adding some
Noise.
some metal screeching to it. Then I thought, oh, this is going to work really good because you did hit it, but then I accentuated the hit with like fake metal scratching. It sounded way worse. I remember my rep.
Well, now you're telling secrets. People are gonna like, oh, he didn't really hit that car.
Well, I mean, you really hit it. But I remember my rep at the time would like go to ad agencies when I was doing commercials. And not that I'm not, but back then. And I remember one time she told me, she's like, I show a lot of like you guys' commercials, and she's like, this one where he hits the car, that's where the whole room laughs. And I remember
you're showing that to clients.
Oh yeah. I would show that to big ad agencies, and they would be like, "This is where you get an actual laugh." Because like sometimes the commercials, they're like jokes, and like you're supposed to laugh, but they're like it's written, and you like understand it's. But that was like one of the first like viral type real things that was like, we were trying to do something new, and I remember her saying like that is a good direction to go in because like. What you guys did here gets genuine laughs in the crowd instead of like, oh, it's a Doritos commercial where like you're supposed to laugh because the guy pops out of the box or whatever, and like you get kind of laughs, but when someone like actually like scratches a car, and then they're like and then the way you would like
well, it was everything. Even obviously the accidents, of course, but nothing of that was scripted. It was all just off the cuff. Let's just act like idiots and get it on film, and it'll be great.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like filming you as you were driving like a lot, like getting an interview of you just driving.
I'm just talking shit.
Yeah. Like, I really want to get these things out there. I really think that, and like, you were like being overly earnest about it. But she said that like, that was like the most popular thing. Like in all the commercials where they had spent like $100,000 and I had like done this whole thing. They were like, yeah, that's cool. But we really like the thing that, we made with like the handy cam from like 2004, and like it like looked
with
like
zero production value.
Yeah, it looked like garbage.
We have like $12 into this. Well, we rented the van. That was $80. We rented the van. Oh God.
Yeah, that was a good, and that was before I really even understood so much about filmmaking. Like I was still learning. Like even back then, like I thought I knew some stuff, but. Yeah, that actually taught me a lot.
Formative years.
Yeah, the slipisodes they learned me.
Well, the other just reminded me of the slow ride video that was shot in Waxahachie. Mm-hmm. Yeomans was a part of it. Who else was a part of it?
It was me and Chris.
Handful of people. But man, when that video got finished, I showed that video to a couple of my friends in other bands that had spent big money on music videos, and they were blown away. And I was like,
location, characters,
and asked about the budget of that video. And I was like, I think the budget was like $2,500 or something.
There was no budget.
There was a little bit of budget.
Who got the budget?
There was like, maybe it was even less, but it was something. It was like people had spent tens and $20,000 and $50,000, $100,000 on music videos and had nothing compared to how good that video was.
Because we were in the.
I think I remember.
We were in the Oddfellows lodge, like,
and in Bruce's house. And
and in the web gallery,
there was some lighting equipment that was rented.
Man, I remember having Home Depot lights. Like those lights you get from Home Depot that are
some
like
of those.
Orange.
Well, those aren't free. Those $20.
Yeah. No, I remember that being the first project I ever did on Final Cut Pro, the editing software, and working in a back closet at my job where everyone else was working on the Avid on the big computers, and me being back there editing that music video. And being like, oh, this actually came out pretty good for like not having no money.
That video came out so good. Slow Ride video. I think was it Morals and Dogma, the name of the song? Yeah, that was a great video. You can still watch that on YouTube too. Yeah,
I think, I almost put that shot in the 13 doc where you guys are talking about like, you're like, oh, I love anything that has to do with like anything old or anything that has to do with superstition or whatever. And there's that shot of you like putting
The hoodwinks on.
on the camera. And I kept trying to get that into the doc. Like, can I work this shot in? Because it's you, but obviously much younger. But I wound up not using it because I felt like it was going to come out of nowhere, and everyone's like, "What that thing of Oliver covering up the camera?" So I didn't end up using it, but I always liked that shot. You're in a number of shots. You were in like we were like, I think we got in some trouble for that. If I remember correctly, Bruce got his keys taken away.
Not really. There was a couple of people that said, that were.
Because we showed the skeleton or whatever.
Well, there's a couple of people that were upset because the lodge got used, and they're like, but we did have permission.
Yes.
To use a lodge from a consensus of the lodge members. There was just a couple of lodge members that weren't there when consent was given, and so they felt like they should have been the ones to give consent. And
I see.
And I was like, "Hey, man,
you still go to lodge?
Yeah,
every Monday.
Last night.
Wow, I didn't know if that was like still happening with the regularity.
Yeah, lodge, Waxahachie, Oddfellows, number 80, going strong.
Yeah, still like dinner first, and then
dinner every Monday night. We've had we've done a lot of upgrades and fixing to the building. The building is very much nicer in there now.
Interesting.
I mean, it was cool in there, but
I remember when it got redone.
But it needs the building needed some repair. So we've done a lot of structural repair and electrical repair and some cosmetic repair. The dining hall is real nice now. It had a drop ceiling. And we've gutted all that, took it back to the original high ceilings. Everything's been fixed. The wood tile ceiling's all new and refinished.
Heart and Hand being right downstairs is Tommy, I want to say. It's the guy that let me borrow those walkies. So I went into Heart and Hand for the other film, and I remember walking through Heart and Hand and feeling like, oh man, this building really, it does look like work's been put into it.
It's a cool building, really cool building.
Is that hotel still operational? That's across the square?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's directly diagonal from the lodge. Yeah.
Yeah. I always wanted to film in there. The place is that lobby.
I think they call it. I think it's a haunted hotel.
Yeah, that's what Yeomans was telling me. It was haunted or something.
Oh, Yo Town. Haven't seen him in a while.
He came to the thing.
Did I see him?
He was wearing a baseball cap. I didn't almost recognize him.
Oh, maybe I did see him.
He was there. I talked to him and Barack for a minute. Yeah, they were. They seemed like they're doing good. But yeah, man, that was awesome. I haven't. It's the first time in a long time that I've screened something I made at Texas. I think we did filmage there, and then I can't remember. I don't know if I've done something there since.
It's a cool theater.
It's so
very
big.
Cool theater. Yeah, I'm glad that was able to work out. Hopefully it gets into some film festivals in Dallas. Where will they play it if they do that? Do you have any idea?
I guess if we get into the Oak Cliff Film Festival, I guess it would be back there. But I don't know. You never know. It's like the film festival stuff. It's
a gamble.
It's just, there's so much now, like everything is so international now. You have stuff coming in from every film festival. Even the small festivals have like so many submissions now. I don't know how they do it, how they watch it all and how they decide. But yeah, I mean, being from Dallas, gives us a little bit of a push being local, all the Dallas festivals, but there's multiple festivals in Dallas, just in the city now that, do like have like a whole infrastructure there. USA Film Festivals in Dallas, there's like a bunch. Dallas International, Oak Cliff, and then I was going to submit to like Waco's. I think there's one all over. I think the whole area, Fort Worth. Just want to try to get in anything that's before June.
Cool. Well, you say that you don't really want or mean to get wrapped up in doing these documentaries, but you keep doing them.
Yeah.
What's the next documentary you're making?
Oh, I never finished my cult documentary, which I've been doing longer than any of my documentaries.
Technically, man, when did you start this 13 documentary? A long time ago.
Well, we didn't really start actually doing like sit down, do a talking head interview about it until like 2016, 2017. That's when that actually started. But I mean, me showing up to the Friday 13th and being delirious and filming with you guys all night.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been going on for a long time. I just never, it was like, I knew all that stuff needed to be documented, but I didn't know back then
how to put it together or when to put it together.
Or like, yeah, what it should be, or what is it going to be, like a full thing, or, you know, because it's, but I think that was great that you were so adamant about doing it the way that you did it every time, was because, you know, it made it easy for people like me that are documentarians to like pop in and film, and then like, you know, getting to know all the other tattoo artists, Mark and Dean and everyone else.
I had a question about it. I didn't, you still have all the time-lapse footage?
From what?
From Friday 13th.
From which?
There was like where we had like a one camera stationary where you see the whole shot for 24 hours. It's like,
if you're talking about 2001.
I don't know if it's 2001. I don't remember.
I don't have a time lapse of the whole 24 hours. There was one in 2001 that went for the whole time, I think.
And you don't know where that is?
Well.
Or who has that, or who did that? Or...
I mean, that was Rusty Tears.
Was it?
His team.
Billy Tears?
Billy Tears. I need to like talk to like Stace Maples, who filmed a bunch of that stuff, that like of you in the print shop and of you like waking up. That didn't even make it in yet, but like there's all this footage of you.
You have some of that footage?
I have all of it.
Oh man, when I bought the fur coat?
Yes, the fur coat. The fur coat didn't make it in because it was like way over here.
That's an offshoot, man. That's like that needs to be like a 1 minute short just for its own sake.
Yeah, I have all that stuff though, but like, yeah, to try and condense all that stuff. I mean, quite honestly, there's so much stuff going on with you, like in history, that it's like.
Did I tell you the what is the word I'm looking for? The finale of that whole fur coat incident?
No. You
remember what happened with that fur coat?
I remember looking at the footage. I remember that guy comes in.
No, but the years later.
Oh, no.
So the quick story is, this buddy of mine wants to just film me for a day, just to see what happens. And like, obviously, because something happens every fucking day, but that day happened to be like an outrageous day. And
yes.
We're at the shop, and this, you know, a
fur coat salesman.
A guy comes in. It's like, hey, you guys want to buy some fur coats? And I'm just like, what? And I look over, and it's just this dude with a duffel bag full of fur coats. And I'm like, well, let me see. So I go over there, and he pulls out these fur coats out of his bag. And I pull this one full length. It's a lynx fur coat. I pull out this full length lynx fur coat, and I try it on. It fits me to a T.
Yes.
It's beautiful. I feel like pimp of the year. I'm wearing this coat, and I'm like, I'm buying this fur coat. And then there was like another little short fur coat I bought for maybe my girlfriend at the time or whatever. I bought a couple fur coats from this guy out of the blue for like nothing, for like very small dollars.
Probably hot.
So anyway, I have this fur coat, and then over the course of the next couple of years, every once in a while, I'll just like wear this fur coat and just be ridiculous. And it's a full length woman's fur coat, but it was comfortable and it was beautiful, and it was couple years go by, a buddy of mine is like started an eBay store in the early days of eBay. And I'm just like, he's like, hey man, I'm selling stuff on eBay. If you have anything you want to sell on eBay, you give it to me. I'll sell it on eBay and I'll give you a percentage. It's like he quit his job. Yeah. I'm an eBay salesman now. This is his idea, is he was going to be an eBay salesman and get rich on the internet, you know? And I was like, okay. And so then like some time goes by, I was like, well, I got a couple things that I could, like Jeff Milburn put one of his motorcycles on eBay for him. And I was like, I had a couple things. And then I was like, you know what I got? I got this fur coat, man. You could sell this fur coat on eBay. And he's like, well, what kind of fur coat is it? And I give him this fur coat, and he like does this research. He's like, this fur coat is worth like $3,000 used. And I'm just like, really? I paid like $40 for it. I didn't tell him that.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, man, I had this fur coat. And he asked 0 questions about this fur coat. And I was like, yeah, sell the fur coat, whatever. Give me whatever cut off it. And so he puts it on eBay. It like gets a lot of comments. It gets a lot of bids. It's going really high. People are asking for more videos or more photos of it and asking for, and it's like, it's made at Neiman Marcus. It's a Neiman Marcus code. And they want, and so then all these people start asking for the certificate that goes with it. Because when you buy a fur coat, a real fur coat, it comes with the certificate and it's who's owned it and there's a serial number and you can track it. And he's like, do you have any of the, he calls me. He's like, hey man, I got a lot of people bidding on this thing and it's going for thousands of dollars. I'm like, woohoo. And he's like, I need the, the certificate and all the stuff that goes with it. I was like, what are you talking about? I bought it from a bum for $40. And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, where'd you think I got a fur coat? He goes, I don't know. He's like, you got me selling stolen goods on the internet.
Yeah.
So he got all scared that he was going to get busted and his eBay store was going to get shut down and all. And I was like, hey, I'm out. I gave you the coat. You sell it. You give me the money. That's the end of the transaction where somebody ended up buying it without the certification.
Sure.
Because there was no certification.
No.
But he's like, man, turns out if we would have had their certificate for this thing, somebody would have paid $5,000 or $6,000 for it.
Wow.
It was like, when it was sold new, it was like $10,000 or $12,000.
Jeez.
And this is whatever year that was.
Yeah. That was probably like 98.
It was the 90s.
Yeah.
I had that Cadillac at the time.
Yes. That is crazy.
Yeah. Funny story ended up with that fur coat. So it ended up getting sold. Somebody on the internet got a cheap deal on that.
Yeah. So I have all that footage. I have so much footage of you. I don't even know who did it all. Like I know Stace Maples filmed that, right? He filmed stuff at the
Stace
shop.
was in college and he had like a film class. He's like had a film project for a school project. He's like filmed and they ended up getting all that solid gold footage. That was the good old days. That was the good old days when bums used to like have cool shit, be entertaining. Now they just fucking shit their pants and fall down in front of the tat shop. They don't got fur coats. They got nothing.
Well, that was a different time.
Different time. So what's this cult documentary you got going?
You know about it. His name was Cletus Adrian. Big, tall.
Wait, Pastor Cletus?
Pastor Cletus.
I tattooed him 2 weeks ago.
What? At the shop?
Yeah.
What did he get?
Hey, he's been getting tattooed a lot. Him, his wife, and his son, they get tattooed probably at least every month or so.
So he's an old friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I first started playing in bands.
I wouldn't go so far to call him a cult.
What would you call it?
I mean,
he's a church?
Yeah, it's church.
All right. Well,
he's religious.
The church documentary. So I started filming his. All right. Well,
does he want this film to be made?
He used to,
and now he's changed.
Now he doesn't. So I started. I was in his band for a minute, and my band would play with his band, and we were in the same music scene.
Yeah.
And he was like in a Christian band, and I was never Christian, but I was in the Christian scene with the guys because that's where a lot of my friends were. And so we would play the churches. We would play God's Place, which is that punk church in Arlington years back. Anyway, he at some point he stopped playing in like bands with all of us, and he was like, I'm starting this church. They're kind of like Pentecostal styled where it's very.
He travels all over the world doing missionary stuff.
So he starts that church, and a bunch of my friends go to that church. And so I'm thinking at the time, this is around the time when I'm starting to get into like atheism, like authors like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, and a bunch of guys that I used to think were cool. Now I don't think that much of it anymore. But anyway,
they lost you.
Well, anyway, that's a different thing. But Pastor Cletus, as they called him, started getting the punk rock church going. So it was like Sundays at 2 p.m. and everyone with the mohawk and tattoos, this is where you went to church. So a bunch of my music buddies would go there. So I started showing up and filming. I was like, this is before filmage. This is before knowing you, this is before any of that stuff. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to film this thing because I think it's
interesting.
Weird. It's interesting, but I thought this is like a, it's worth documenting because it was like
something's going on here.
Yeah, something's going on, and it was born out of the music scene. Even though he probably didn't want to talk about that or admit that, it was born out of the punk rock music scene, and so I would go and film like all the time. I would film like every time, and then I would drive home. I would be so depressed, not depressed, but they do the thing where you show up, you do the songs come first, and everyone's cheering, and then he comes out and he does his sermon or whatever you call it. But the sermon was, tough. They're tough sermons. It's a lot of,
because you need to change your life.
Exactly. So that's the thing. So I found it interesting, and being someone myself who was kind of getting into this anti-theism, I thought this is interesting. Like, he and I are friends, but I'm against this kind of thing, but I still want to capture it. And so I kept going for years and years, and I would film, not every Sunday, but often.
Yeah, considerable amount of footage.
A ton. So I started filming interviews with people, and I would I would be there so long that a lot of the people there, they didn't trust me. Like, he knew me, so he would allow me, but like his underlings or whatever, they were like, who's this guy? He's not a Christian. He's not into it. All he does is I sit back there in the camera and film, or get up in their faces. Cletus would let me do it, even though he knew I wasn't a Christian. I think part of him thought maybe like I would start believing or whatever. And I would keep going and going and going. And sometimes I'd bring my girlfriend, or sometimes I'd bring my buddies, and they would film from the other side. And we would just keep doing this thing, because it was always like an event. Like, they'd be falling on the ground, speaking in tongues. Someone would be freaking out, like shaking. It'd always be something every time. There'd be like a whole thing, or someone would be getting married, even though they were like fucking 18 years old. Like, there was always something happening that was like
perfect time to get married.
So I kept going.
At least if you get married when you're 18, you got an excuse. You're an idiot.
Yeah. Well, I was there so long that people would start leaving and having major issues with the church. And I would have footage of them being a devout, but I would be doing this documentary so long that almost everyone at some point they'd be anti the church by the time they would leave. And then I would film their interview after they were like, I'm done with this place. He's not good. They're not good. And I would get all these.
So you got both sides of the story.
Yeah. So, and then I would interview him, like, what do you think is going on? And I would like kind of debate him or whatever. But he told me, he's like, look, God's not going to let you make a bad movie about me. And I was like, all right, like I'm definitely going to try to do the best. I didn't want to paint him as a villain, because that's not interesting either. I wanted to present it as it was.
Yeah. You just document it.
Yeah. So I kept doing that over and over and over, years and years. And then at some point, I started living with you still. I remember living at your house still, sometimes on Sunday, renting a camera for like $300, like a nicer one, so I could film the church service, and going out there and filming it, and driving home at Sunday at like 5, feeling like, oh man, not feeling great, because even though I'm not a believer, you still get that like message that would happen for like an hour, 2 hours. Sometimes he'd be preaching and be like kind of accusatory to the audience or whatever. So
they're sinners.
Yeah. Whatever. That was their thing. And I was willingly going there. And at some point I was like, all right, I started doing interviews of people, like some people that I would do interview there of people outside after church. They loved to talk about it afterwards. Then I'd interview people that hated him, but I would do their interview like, somewhere else at a location of my choosing, away from the church. So I started to put something together, and I sent him something that was like 10 or 12 minutes long. Like, here's a little thing. It was nothing. No one said anything derogatory in the little clip that I'd sent him. Just like, here are the people. Here's kind of how it looks. Here's kind of like a little opening thing, like a little fast opening that kind of shows all the crazy stuff, and not crazy, but Yeah. And he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And this is after I had like helped him, you know, like I'd filmed some promo for him, which I didn't want to do. I didn't want to film promo, but I was trying to embed myself into his world. So I would sometimes go there and I'd film like a little, hey guys, we're doing a church camp next week. And I'd be freaking doing it, like filming him talking about it. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm like not into this stuff, but in order to keep filming, I wanted to like, you know, and he's an old friend of mine. So I'm like, whatever. But at some point I think he saw who all I was interviewing and he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So at that point I was like,
and this is a long time ago still.
This is still a long time ago. Like this is probably 2016.
Oh, okay.
Which is almost 10 years ago now. But like 2016 is when I think he was like, I don't want to do this. Actually, I don't want you to do this movie and blah, blah, blah. So for a little while, I was like, well, he don't want me to do that. Like, so it's hard to like, I want to do more interviews with him. I only have like 1 or 2 interviews with him. So I wanted like more modern day interview.
Yeah. Without that, it doesn't really tie it together.
I have multiple interviews with him and I've like pulled interviews of his, like, you know, from the internet. So I have enough to make. I heavily had enough to make the doc, but then I started making filmage. As soon as filmage was over, started making the Fat Wreck documentary. Then started like really doing commercial stuff. Like, you know, my career was like so busy that I didn't have time to do the Weird Cletus thing. I had a woman come down. She helped me. She did some editing. She was like a big help in putting a lot of it together. But then like it kind of fell apart because I just had so much else going on. But at the same time, like it is the first one that I'd started and had never finished. So in making documentaries, like now having this one with you, like figuring this out is like a big deal for me because even though it's only like 22 minutes long, it's still like decades worth of work, you know, and sometimes decades worth of work only fits into 22 minutes the best way. And people are like, how could you spend that long doing something? And it's like, that's how documentaries are.
Yeah. You kind of need, it's hard to make a documentary of something that's been going on for a long time without showing the old footage.
Yes.
And then the year's growth of it and then the end. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can't just, if you started today and made something about something old, you'd be reliant only on
modern
found old footage. You'd have to, you know, which a lot of people do.
Yeah. Like Jesus Camp was like that. It was like they spent a weekend filming it and that blew up, you know, like that really was a huge religious documentary that wasn't super different, but I was more going in for like the long game, whereas like, no, we have footage of this for like decades. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
It's always the most interesting documentaries to me. Like the ones where like they show up for a week and they film and then they cut it together. Those are great. But I always wanted to do more historical, archival, something that is like undeniably decades worth of a story.
Yeah.
So that is something that I haven't finished, namely because I've been too busy. And namely because he was like, I don't want you to do this anymore. Now, in all fairness, that doesn't matter. Like if someone doesn't want me to do the documentary, but they've sat for it, like I'm still going to do it. Like, I know you don't want it to happen. You may not show up to the premiere. You may like tell your followers not to watch it. That doesn't matter. That doesn't mean anything to someone that's worked on something for decades. Like if I want to finish it, I'll finish it. You can't stop me.
Yeah.
You can't say like, oh, we'll send you a cease and desist. Doesn't work like that in documentary. Like if you sit for a documentary, used to, people would be like, well, I didn't sign a release. That doesn't fly anymore. If you sit, you do the interview and someone captures you and you're like answering questions.
You can't make a Doritos commercial without it.
Correct.
Without you signing. But a documentary, if you interview, you're in.
Yes. That is the truth now. And so, yeah, it's been part of me like wanting to like, you know, there's still people that I have all this footage of that were like super like, oh, Cletus, you're the best. And now they're like, they hate him or whatever. And so I haven't interviewed all those people because they've like moved to other parts. Because at some point, Cletus had like 8 or 9 different versions of Deliverance Bible Church around the country. There's one in Seattle. There's one over here. Like,
he had different people opening branches.
Yes. Yeah. Now it's all collapsed down just into like him and his family it's just them again.
But he's doing a lot of, he's going all over the world doing a lot of missionary work.
Yes,
and I'm not sure exactly what but him and his kid, his wife, his kid, they come in to get tattooed. They're always
Yeah, they're super nice.
Super cool, super nice, super positive, and super, you're caring, loving people.
Yes. No, I'm not saying they're not. It's just, he doesn't want like the documentary that comes out to be him, a bunch of people that are talking trash, but it's also like
he's a crazy cult leader.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what the majority, regardless of what he would like to say, likes to admit, like that's the vast majority of people that used to go to his church have very, very hard feelings about him and like the way that they're all treated. I'm not saying like, I get that people that he's going to say, oh,
they fell away from faith and
yeah. I'm not saying like, that's not the job. It's not my job to judge. Right. It's like, I'm there
only God.
I'm there to capture everyone's story. And like, that's what makes it interesting is that he has a bunch of apostates that are like against him now, that are like super, like I still have people writing me emails like asking me, but Brad Bevel, one of them, like, when are we going to finish the thing? Like, what's going to happen?
Was Brad Bevel in the church?
I don't know if he was a member, but a lot of people from the punk scene, like, have spent at least one or two Sundays up there. A lot of people from the music scene, because it was interesting. It was like, oh, we heard this is the punk rock church, or we heard it's the metal church or whatever. And so, yeah, like that's the only one now that we have got this one in a place where I can feel like, okay, we did this thing, even though, it took a long time. That's the only one left that I still feel like I started and haven't finished it. And it's mainly a part of like me just having not finished it. I want to finish things, especially things that I spend decades and hundreds and thousands of dollars of money,
not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds and thousands.
Yes. Like, no, I haven't spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on
but you
Cleveland.
spent hundreds and thousands, but not hundreds of thousands.
Correct. And I don't mean thousands of dollars. I mean thousands of hours.
Yeah.
Which I guess could equate to dollars if you really wanted it to. But so yeah, that is like the documentary that is still in the ether, is that one. And will I finish it? Hopefully one day. Because it's interesting to like to watch someone's whatever they're creating, to have their thing go on for this long and to see where he is now versus where they started. It's fascinating. And people are going to detract. He's going to have detractors, but to me, it's like, it's not interesting if you just film people that are like his supporters.
Yeah.
Like that just seems like propaganda. It's like, I want to tell the story of like what this whole thing is. And I think he didn't want to, because a lot of the people that I interviewed, he knows, even though he didn't say anything rude about him in the little clip that I showed him, he knows that they said something rude about them 30 more minutes into the interview or whatever.
Yeah.
Not rude, but disparaging or whatever.
Or just,
I spent a lot of time taking out slanderous remarks. I spent a lot because I was partnered with someone, and she was not a fan of his, and she put together this cut that was great, but it was harsh. And
harsh.
and I wasn't against it, but I was like, I also don't want to.
You also want to be
fair.
Somewhat fair.
Yeah. And
realistically fair.
Yeah. And I wanted to also like not get myself into some trouble. I didn't want it to be slanderous. I didn't want it to be like unnecessarily like just mean-spirited. I wanted it to be an interesting documentary. But at some point we'll finish that one. I'll finish that one. And he'll be mad about it, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, it's got to be interesting just by the fact of having so many different years of the growth and rise and decline, and
Yeah, at some point they were doing like live streams, so I was like capturing the live stream off my computer, and that was interesting because like that was a new thing. So it's like, and then his kids got to the age where instead of being like little kids when I was filming them and getting little clips of them as kids, now they're adults. So to me, that was interesting. Like, you've raised your family in this thing, and like, he's connected to all these bigger churches too. So I thought that was interesting. Like now he's like connected to all these other pastors and all these people that have these massive followings. I thought all of it was interesting, but it's like people that exist outside normal culture. Like that's what that's what I think is interesting. Even if like I don't agree with everything he's doing, like it's interesting that you have this full on church that some people call a cult, like existing in fucking Euless, where everyone looks like a punk rocker. Not everyone, but a lot of the people look like punk rockers. Some of them are like just normal people trying to go to church.
Yeah.
Not everyone's like a punk rocker at the church, but it was a lot of disaffected youth, and a lot of those disaffected youth, they're going to have issues that they're going to put on him that he doesn't deserve, and I thought that was an interesting thing. They would have collective housing where like a lot of the young people that would be going to their church would all live together in these apartments or these houses that they would all rent together. And it kind of reminded me of
better than living on the street.
Yeah, well, it kind of reminded me of like the neighborhood around Kalahanjis.
Yeah.
Like that whole neighborhood around Kalahanjis is all people that go to the church because they don't ever drive, and like the same thing was happening in Cleese's church where like a lot of the people around the church were like groups of young people in their early 20s living together. I mean, it's a dream when you're that age.
But that was also pretty common just in the punk rock scene in general to like have a big flop house with 10 or so people or more living together and just punk rock living.
Yeah. Like, and their thing, a lot of it was the monasticism, people living with like very little, like, you work at Starbucks or you work some like job, but then you give it all to the church. You give it all to your rent and to your church. Whatever you don't pay to your rent, you give to your church, and like you eat at the church. And like, I just thought the whole like selfless monasticism of people like basically giving everything they had to the church. I thought that was fascinating. I'd never been a part of anything like that, So maybe one day we'll finish that.
Yeah.
Blood and Tongues.
Blood and Tongues.
That's what I've called that one.
Blood and Tongues. Well, that is that is a wild turn. The fact that you brought up this thing, and I'm like, had no clue.
What tattoo did he get? I remember
he's got a lot of tattoos. The last one I did was a lighthouse. I think a lighthouse and a ship, and
he knew the guys in Descendants before any of us did. He was actually buddies with the guys in Descendants because he was like worshiped them. I shouldn't say worship. He was like a huge fan of the Descendants and all. And he knew all of those guys. And
I tattooed him way back then, and he started him like his kid.
I remember when he was on Miami Inc. or LA Inc. or one of those shows, he got like a blue Jesus. I remember the episode because I put it into the documentary a little bit.
I don't remember that.
I don't know if it was you. I just remember someone else had interviewed on one of those shows.
Yeah.
He'd gotten on our show. But yeah.
Well,
Cletus.
Pastor Cletus. Wonderful man.
We'll see. We'll see what happens, if anything. If not, Cletus, thanks for letting me come to your church 1,000 times and not kicking me out.
Man, that's going to be very interesting to see if that thing comes to light. Very interesting.
Yeah, I've filmed other people getting kicked out. I filmed like a lot of harsh, like weird stuff. And like, I feel like there was one point where like people's teeth fillings were turning to gold. Did I ever show you this footage?
No.
Oh man. They were like, oh my gosh, your fillings have turned gold. And like people sticking the camera in someone's mouth. And it's just like, and they're like, everyone's fillings in the whole church have turned gold. And like all this crazy stuff. Like there was like constantly.
Did your fillings turn to gold?
Me? No.
Yeah.
I'm not a believer. I'm a heathen.
Oh man.
I've been a long time heathen.
I have not heard about this fillings turning to gold thing.
Oh man, that's one of very many miracles. There's a lot of miracles that happen.
I can't wait to see this.
I'll show you the trailer after we cut.
All right, deal. But you haven't worked on that in a while.
No, it's been years.
But you've just been working on paying gigs.
Yeah, and this a little bit here and there. Always, I think that's one good way to make docs is not just to like attack it and then take some time off, let your subconscious work on it, then come back to it, But
you don't foresee yourself starting a new documentary anytime soon or new topic or trying to delve back into some other thing that's going to take another 20 years to make.
Well, I was close to doing the No Effects documentary.
But they did one, right?
No, they're doing one now.
But they're doing it without you.
Yes. Someone else is doing it. A guy in LA, like a true crime guy, got it. which that dude's done way more than me. So he's like, you know, aptly, and he's in LA. But I like had all this stuff going on. Like I was talking to them. I was hoping to get the NoFX documentary. But I'm a little bit honestly relieved because it's documentary.
It's a lot of work.
There's ton of work, and much more than you ever get paid. That one was actually we were going to have a budget, but it's still, when you think about the amount of hours.
But when you edit a movie, there's a budget and you're paid for the time you work on it.
Yes.
When you do a documentary, it's like you're doing a lot of pro bono business.
Oh yeah.
Like you're committed to the project. And that's the kind of people that make documentaries are always the people that are committed to a project and committed to an idea and want to share this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
In a movie world, those people are the writers and directors. And
Yeah.
in movie, the editors are just people that get paid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just finished a new movie, editing a new movie that I didn't have anything to do with except editing for the most part. And, but I'm still like, I still put my whole self into it. Like even when the director's like, it's good, I'm like, it's not good enough. Like this could be better. This could be better. We could do this. So I like crank on movies, even when I'm just editing them, like for months and months after they think like I always wear out the director. Like the directors are always like, I think it's done. I think we're done. And I'm like, I think we have a long way to go. It doesn't,
We got a long way.
it doesn't wear me down. Like the guys in Filmage, they were they're like, we're never doing another documentary like that. That affected our relationship with our wives. Like that was like, it was decimating to our, but to me, I'm like, I can go. Like I love the process. And I think like getting to the end is really nice, but it's not like I enjoy having a long time to keep working on it because I'm like, oh, I actually took a week off and that week off actually gave me some perspective. I remember the Filmage.
But the Filmage documentary it's like one of those, it's like every minute is interesting.
Yeah.
You have to keep it interesting and you can't just, I mean, for someone who really good documentaries are ones that are like, you don't have to love the topic to enjoy the documentary.
Yeah.
And I think Filmage is one of those.
You know, it's funny that documentary, it started for years was like Bill sitting on the couch, like, you know, fishing, talking about fishing. And I was like, this isn't a good opening. It just opens with him just sitting there talking about fishing. I'm like, this sucks. And I watched, right before we were done, I watched Anvil, the story of Anvil. Y'all ever seen that?
Yes.
The Canadian band who like sucks, but they keep being a band forever.
It's a wild documentary.
So the opening of that documentary is...
And they've been a band for like 72 years or some shit.
So
the biggest band that never made it, right?
The biggest band that never made it. So the opening of that doc is like the main guy driving around some shitty
crazy
car.
as fuck, yeah.
He's just driving around in his car in the snow. And he's just like... You can just tell like hating life. And I'm like, that is an opening. So then I went back and looked through all the footage I'd filmed. I'm like, oh, I filmed Bill driving through the snow of Colorado, just driving around. I'm like, this should be the opening of the movie. So I like re-edited the opening of Filmage to be Bill like driving around in the snow because of Anvil. And it happened like right before the movie. And the other guys were like months and months had been done. Like, dude, we're done with this. Like we got to we're moving on to other things. And I'm like, no, we got to keep making this better. Like I'll work on the movie until like right before it's done because I'm like, oh, I just had like 40 good ideas. And they're like, oh, we got to turn this in next week. And I'm like, all right, I'll work all night. It's just like, you know, that's how you used to be with designs and stuff. You'd be like, yeah, I got to do this design for Kurt. But I still got 2 months before I got to turn it in. And it'd be like the day before and you'd be like in my room on my bed, like, what are you doing? Oh man, I got to turn this in at like 8 a.m. before Kurt gets mad. It's like, sometimes that's just how it works.
That's how it works.
You just got to let the time like build until like there's that pressure and then you're like, oh, I got to do this. So yeah, like, I love documentaries, even though they beat us down. But you know, if we get another one, didn't get the NoFX one, but if I get another one, I'm not going to say no to it if it's good. Yeah. But I don't know, like I haven't had anything recently that's made me like I'm going to do a doc about this.
Yeah,
I did this one on CBD oil a couple of years back that like kids that have epilepsy that were getting helped by taking the CBD oil. So there's one cannabis place down south and here in Austin, like one in the state, and they made oil And when you gave this oil to a lot of these kids, they wouldn't have seizures. But because we're in Texas and the laws are fucked up, the kids, like, they would have to meet up in a parking lot and give cash to the doctor. The doctor's like giving them the medicine. It was legal, but it was all kind of like mostly legal. And so we made a documentary about that. It was like 12 minutes long or whatever. But, you know, like, this is the last like doc I did that, you know, beyond like this, the thing with you that I had done recently, because, you know, there's just so much work. Like, doing documentaries is like so encompassing. And if you're like me, it's like I put everything I am into whatever project I'm in. And it's like,
Well, I can imagine right now, if they're making a NoFX documentary, it's like one of those deals where there is thousands of videos of NoFX over the last 30 years.
oh my God, yeah.
It's like the amount of research and what to put in and what to leave out and what to, you know, it's like the surplus of content would be massive.
Mike's going to have a big part of it. But they did let me, I have been doing, I didn't get the doc, but they did let me, they were like, okay, we're playing this last shows. So can you make a slideshow that plays on the big screens before the thing? I'm like, absolutely, I'll do that. You know, like, whatever. So they gave me like 1,000+ pictures of their 30 something years of history. So I made this huge slideshow that was like 20 minutes
But it's
long.
like, it's things that it doesn't just,
No, it was just like a simple,
Yeah.
they just wanted something simple.
Okay.
And so I'm like, yeah, I can
you're
make
not graphic sliding in and
No, it was
fading
just
in
like,
and out,
no,
or-
it was just like
Okay,
cool,
okay.
like old pictures, funny stuff.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many funny pictures. So like, I'm like, yeah, I'll make that for you. So I made it. I spent all this time making it, and they were like, oh, we couldn't get it to play. And I was like, God damn it. They're like, but let's make some for Instagram. So I reworked a lot of the slideshow for like Instagram. And so they've been posting it on their Instagram.
Oh, cool.
Of all my little things. But the other day I gave them one, and I didn't realize this, but there's this picture with Mike. It's like they're on tour with another band. So it's a group photo. So I'm like, you know, I'm putting in a lot of these pictures, putting a lot of work into this. And I didn't realize that Mike's got his dick out. So like in this picture, it like starts, and somehow I miss it because I'm like, you know, there's a lot of pictures in this thing, and it like starts on his dick, and then like, you know, and then it shows everybody. And
You're just so used to seeing dicks. You don't even.
I like totally miss it, and I'm like, oh shit. And then they post it, and everyone's like, really wish I hadn't seen Mike's dick, and I'm like. And so they have to delete it, and they're like, hey, can you send me that again without Mike's dick? And I'm like, fuck. So I like make it again. And then like repost it, and it's fine. But like, I felt shitty because I was like, oh no, like I'm not trying to get them kicked off Instagram or whatever,
Oh my
you know, just because of
God.
that.
Everybody's seen Mike's dick.
Mike's actually, that was so crazy is when I went to interview with this company, this director company, production company, and they were like, yeah, it's funny you've done all these punk rock docs because we were trying to get a punk rock doc yesterday, but the singer didn't like me, to this other director guy that I was trying to work with. And I was like, oh, who was it? And they were like, NoFX. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, we almost got the NoFX documentary, but the call didn't go great. And I was like, I've already done a NoFX documentary, because there's a small NoFX documentary in the Fat Records documentary.
Yeah.
You know, because they were one of the first bands. So of course we did like a mini NoFX doc inside the Fat Rec doc. And so I'm like, oh dude, I'm already there. I've already done this. I know Mike. I filmed him for multiple things. And so they were like, oh, you should do the NoFX doc. And I was like, oh my God, yes. The one documentary I'll be happy to do. But it was funny because like I had already made like a small, you know, a small version of it, and we just needed to expand it. So I was like, I think I'm the perfect person because I already have all the archival. I already know him. I already know the whole band from interviewing. I mean, I don't know them well, but you know, you probably know him better than me, but like, you know, I knew him a little bit from filming or whatever, but you know, that didn't work out. But yeah, hopefully the church documentary will come along, and then and then maybe something else. Who knows? Anyone out there need a documentary made and willing to pay any amount of money? Hit me up.
Man, we're gonna have to just think of something. Think of something good.
What do you want a documentary made about? The making of the Big Lebowski. How it happened.
I'm just trying to put on a dude fest.
A dude fest. Oh,
Yeah,
the dude fest.
Put on a dude fest.
Yes.
Now, me and John Pedigo were talking about putting on a Dude Fest years ago. We never made it happen.
I mean, they do that sometimes.
They do have Big Lebowski festivals and assorted dude festival things around the country here and there. I think it'd be a great event for Dallas.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll be there.
It's still the greatest cinematic feature of all time.
No question.
No
The
question.
bridges, man.
Well, man.
I mean, that's one of the quotes that I could have applied to you many times in our living together. You're not wrong. You're just being an asshole.
Am I wrong? No, you're just an asshole. Well, I love when in that scene when Walter just goes, well, okay then. He's just like perfectly fine with that answer.
Yeah.
Like, as long as I'm not wrong.
As long as I'm not
As
wrong.
long as I'm not wrong, we're all good. All right. Well, I guess that's a good moment to fucking wrap it up.
We can wrap it up on the Big
it's,
Lebowski.
It's been, I think we're getting close to 2 hours. So that went fast. Lots to talk about. Thank you so much, J-Dub.
Yeah.
And,
thanks for coming down to Austin.
Man, I'm really
Audra and Oliver.
Thankful for your friendship for all the years and all the cool shit you've done. And I'm stoked that this documentary is finally hitting the airwaves.
Yeah.
So y'all get ready. The tentative time, June 13th, Friday 13th, 2025.
Unless you live in the DFW area, and then hopefully sometime in the spring, you'll be able to see it in a theater.
Yeah.
Maybe what we'll do, we'll talk about this, but maybe what we'll do is a full, like an actual, you buy a ticket, you come to Texas Theater, and you watch the movie with all of us. You know, like we could do what we did the other night, except we open it up to the public and sell tickets. We could do that.
And everybody gets a tattoo.
Promises.
We have tattooers walking through the aisles, tattooing you in your chair.
Yeah, I'm sure Texas Theater guys would be like, "What? You're doing what?"
We could just make the little stamp of needles that you just like dip in ink and then stab you, and you get a 13 as you walk in. Everybody gets this.
A permanent, like instead of like a stamp.
Yeah, be a permanent tattaoo. That's a pretty good idea.
We'll put Audra on that. She seems like a good person to handle that. Put that together. Get all the releases. How do I get this off?
Oh, you're set for life with that one. All right.
Well,
thanks, Justin.
Thanks you, sir.
Later, buddy. Hey, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Come on, guys. Click all those links. Push all those buttons because it really helps us out and gets us out there to more and more peeps. What in the Duck podcast is produced by Audra Cabral and John.com Niederkorn. Our sound, video engineer, and editor is Courtney, Junior Larkins. Initial audio-video setup and intro music by Blake Balake Pinchon. And a big thanks to everyone that submitted questions. Y'all keep them coming. Email me any questions you would like me to answer to whatintheduckpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on What in the Duck. What in the Duck podcast is proud to be sponsored by Anchor Screen Printing. Anchor Screen Printing has been printing t-shirts and merch products since 1999. Anchor is the place for quality, small-run items. At Anchor, every print is hand-done by people who care about art. You can email anchorcustoms@gmail.com to talk about getting something printed for your company, brand, or shop. Anchor Screen Printing also has its own online merch store that sells Elm Street Tattoo, Cheap Thrills, Heart and Hand, Party First Safety Made Me merch, and much more. So go to anchorscreenprinting.com today and buy some cool shit. Or you can click the link provided in this podcast to shop now.